Su Zimo's primordial spirit completely exploded. The eye of heavenly punishment was torn free and fell from the firmament. Those who sit high above grow accustomed to their perch. How could they tolerate being tainted by mortal dust? Su Zimo did not think about that question. Having been struck by the world-ending primordial thunder, he should have completely vanished by now. However, after a long time had passed, a single leaf drifted through the void. On that leaf, a rich aura of life surged and flowed. The leaf began to transform. Before long, the leaf vanished, and Su Zimo's figure appeared in its place. This leaf was a leaf of life. It was a divine ability Su Zimo had learned back then from the ancient wood god Jumong. One leaf was one life. Whenever he had free time, Su Zimo would condense such leaves. Of course, this was not true resurrection from death. Rather, it was a method of hiding a strand of Su Zimo's aura within the leaf. The heavenly Tao appeared to have killed Su Zimo, but in truth, it had only destroyed his physical body. Only by destroying this leaf could Su Zimo truly die. Precisely because he had left himself this escape route, Su Zimo had not used the power left behind by the previous Infernal Lord. He knew this was not the time to confront the heavenly Tao head-on. After his resurrection, the power of the infinite Tao realm within him steadily restored itself. The vast power was that of the primordial edict of absolute annihilation. Su Zimo greatly enjoyed this sensation of growing stronger. After opening the 11th Meridian Gate, known as Lightbringer, Su Zimo began to feel puzzled. It was said that only by opening all 12 Meridian Gates could one truly transcend. Yet the first 11 Meridian Gates were all traceable within the body. As for the 12th Meridian Gate, he could not find it at all. If he could not even locate the Meridian Gate, how was he supposed to cultivate or open it? Su Zimo increasingly felt that the farther one went in cultivation, the more difficult it became. At some point, even relying on enlightenment alone was no longer sufficient. Of course, this matter would have to be discussed with the true martial progenitor. Among all the people he knew, the true martial progenitor had likely gone the farthest. The crisis from the heavenly Tao had passed. Su Zimo returned to the Jade Maiden Palace. Now that he had reached the infinite Tao realm, Su Zimo was confident that he could defeat ordinary infinite Tao cultivators. However, the man guarding the tombs was still someone Su Zimo could not contend with. Because that man had opened the three blossoms. The gap was simply too great. But Su Zimo was not in a hurry. He knew that Bone Demon and Mortal Sovereign would come here sooner or later. The Jade Maiden Palace had been peaceful for far too long. Eventually, that silence was bound to be broken. So Su Zimo settled down here with peace of mind. The Jade Maiden Palace was filled with beautiful women. When he was free, he would occasionally tease them, and life was quite comfortable. At last, Su Zimo's patience was not in vain. 1 month later, a heaven-shaking explosion rang out on the outskirts of the Jade Maiden Palace. The sound was immense. It was as if the entire Jade Maiden Palace were about to be blown apart. All the disciples panicked upon hearing it. The Jade Maiden Palace had been tranquil for countless years. This was the first time such an explosion had ever occurred. Everyone looked up. They saw that cracks had appeared in the sky above the previously calm island. Immediately afterward, a figure fell down from the heavens. Arctic Ancestor! Someone recognized the figure and cried out in alarm. The figure was covered in blood and had clearly suffered grave injuries. Arctic Ancestor raised her hand and said with difficulty, Hurry and activate the Genesis formation. Bone Demon has joined forces with the otherworldly demons. They want to swallow the entire Great Beyond. We must not let them succeed. The many disciples were instantly thrown into chaos. They had grown up in the Jade Maiden Palace. They had never experienced war, nor schemes and intrigues. They were like golden canaries kept in a cage. Only Lu Suer, at this critical moment, managed to remain calm. She asked, Ancestor, where is the Genesis formation? We don't even know how to activate it. Go to the founding ancestors' mausoleum. Someone there will tell you, Arctic Ancestor said. At this moment, black energy wrapped around her body. That was the evil aura of the otherworldly demons. In a short time, she could not expel it at all. "I'll go with you." Suzimo stepped forward and said, "What are you trying to do?" Arctic Ancestor instantly became wary. "Are you in league with them? If I were on their side, do you think you would still have a chance to activate the Genesis formation?" Suzimo shot back. "The mausoleum is a forbidden area. Those who are not disciples of this palace are not allowed to enter," Arctic Ancestor said hesitantly. "I've already met the man inside," Suzimo suddenly added. Arctic Ancestor's expression changed. That meant Suzimo had already entered the mausoleum. "What do you want?" Arctic Ancestor asked. "Rest assured, whatever I want can wait. Solving the immediate crisis comes first," Suzimo replied. Arctic Ancestor had no time to think further. She knew she could not stop Suzimo anyway. In the end, she could only say, "Act with caution. I hope it's not already too late." Suzimo and Lu Suer did not dare linger. They hurried toward the founding ancestor's mausoleum. "Young Master Su, what exactly did you come to our Jade Maiden Palace for?" Lu Suer was not foolish. From the earlier exchange, she could tell that Suzimo had his own agenda. "Strictly speaking, I'm not taking something, just borrowing it," Suzimo shrugged. "That thing isn't very useful to me anyway. I just need it to break a formation." As they spoke, they arrived at the mausoleum. Suzimo once again saw the man. The man was the same as before, sitting in the pavilion and drinking heavily, as if nothing had happened. Seeing him, Lu Suer did not know what to say. Arctic Ancestor returned gravely wounded and wants to activate the Genesis formation. Suzimo took the initiative to explain. "It's already too late." The man shook his head. "They've sealed off the entire Great Beyond. Where could the Genesis formation escape to?" "They sealed off the entire Great Beyond?" Suzimo was visibly shaken. Although the Great Beyond was not comparable to the 9 heavens, it was still vast beyond measure. What kind of existence could have sealed it entirely? "You misunderstand. It's not certain individuals, but certain weapons," the man explained. "Epic artifacts specifically designed to seal large-scale worlds. The otherworldly demons specialize in plundering weak worlds, so it's not strange that they possess such weapons." "I already said it. The Jade Maiden Palace could not remain peaceful forever." Suzimo smiled. "Now tell me, do you still think you can hold this place?" "Do I have any other choice now?" the man retorted. "Consider my terms," Suzimo said. The man fell silent for a moment. At last, he said, "If you can help the Jade Maiden Palace survive this calamity, I can lend you the desolate tree, and they must not disturb the peace of this mausoleum." "Leave it to me," Suzimo replied. He looked at Lu Suer and led her out of the mausoleum. "So what do we do now?" "Kill," Suzimo said calmly. "Actually, this matter is very simple. Bone Demon and Mortal Sovereign are nothing to fear. The real trouble is those otherworldly demons." Hearing Suzimo's words, Lu Suer looked at him deeply. "But without our ancestor, I don't think we can deal with any of them," she said. "There's no need for you to take action. I have my own way," Suzimo replied. At this moment, the surroundings of the Jade Maiden Palace were completely sealed off. Evil demonic energy rolled and surged around them, forming vast clouds of darkness. The sky was dim, and nothing could be seen clearly. The entire island trembled as if it might collapse at any moment. Following Suzimo's instructions, Lu Suer gathered all the elders and disciples of the Jade Maiden Palace. She herself had no good solution. At the brink of annihilation, she chose to trust Suzimo. Moreover, Suzimo was the only one she could trust. Arctic Ancestor was gravely wounded. In her current situation, she no longer had the luxury of choice. The disciples were panic-stricken, and the scene became noisy and chaotic. Only Suzimo remained calm. He stood atop a high mountain within the Jade Maiden Palace, quietly waiting for the otherworldly demons to arrive. With a wave of his hand, Suzimo summoned the otherworldly demon that had once been sealed inside the otherworldly demon stone. "This aura, does it feel familiar?" Suzimo asked. That otherworldly demon was now hiding within a shield. At this moment, sensing the aura outside the Jade Maiden Palace, it shouted, "It's our otherworldly demon race. No doubt about it. I just don't know which branch it is." "Do you still remember our cooperation?" Su Zimo asked. "Of course I remember. But now that you've reached a dead end and want my help, you must first release me," the otherworldly demon said. It believed that Su Zimo now had to rely on it. Su Zimo did not explain. He merely said, "Wait, you'll know soon enough." As the attacks from outside grew more and more intense, after some time, the defenses of the Jade Maiden Palace were finally shattered. Bone Demon and Mortal Sovereign were the first to step through the air and arrive. As for the otherworldly demons, they remained hidden within the rolling demonic clouds and did not reveal themselves. Presumably, they feared being detected by the heavenly Tao and wiped out once again. "Jade Maiden Palace, surrender to me. We can spare your lives." Bone Demon's voice echoed throughout the entire palace. He continued calmly, "Among the other 4 major forces, 2 have already surrendered, and 2 have been destroyed. I believe you are wise enough to make the right choice." "Bone Demon, long time no see," Su Zimo said with a light chuckle. Upon hearing that voice, Bone Demon instantly recognized Su Zimo. His gaze turned cold. As endless baleful aura gathered and settled on Su Zimo, he smiled ferociously. "There's a road to heaven you refuse to take, yet you barge straight into hell where there is no gate. Truly marvelous. Do you really think I fled back then because I couldn't defeat you?" Su Zimo asked. Beside him, Mortal Sovereign snorted coldly. "No matter what crooked path you took, you no longer possess the human sovereign's power. And now our otherworldly demon lord has descended. Today, no matter who comes, you will die." Hearing this, Su Zimo shook his head and laughed. "That's why you're frogs at the bottom of a well." Su Zimo looked toward the depths of the void and said meaningfully, "One each. How about it?" No one knew whom he was speaking to, but the void rippled, as if responding to him. In the next instant, a figure stepped out of the void. The man's robes fluttered, his aura vast and imposing. In his hand, he held a broken sword. Yes, a broken sword. Yet despite being broken, the blade was engraved with Tao runes, within which a shattered world seemed to be reflected. The moment the man appeared, he suppressed a vast expanse of space. Lu Suer was startled. This man was the same one she had seen before in the mausoleum. She had always been curious about him. How could there be a man within the Jade Maiden Palace? With the man's appearance, Bone Demon's side grew solemn. Bone Demon was a 3 Blossoms level powerhouse. He could clearly sense the terrifying power within the man's body. He knew that this man, like himself, was also a 3 Blossoms level existence. "Interesting. The Jade Maiden Palace truly hides dragons and crouching tigers," Bone Demon said. He looked at the man and said, "This place is too small. Let's find somewhere more spacious to fight." The man turned his head and glanced at Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm here." The man nodded slightly. Then he shattered the void and vanished together with Bone Demon into the depths of space. No one knew the outcome of their battle. Within the Jade Maiden Palace, however, Mortal Sovereign stepped forward, his gaze icy as he looked at Su Zimo. "It's time to settle the score between us," he said. "Without that formation, you're not my opponent," Su Zimo replied. "My master has granted me new power. This time, I will take your head." Mortal Sovereign snorted. The demonic aura around him grew thicker and thicker. The power he emitted far surpassed his previous strength. Only then did Su Zimo realize that the master Mortal Sovereign spoke of was an otherworldly demon. Previously, Mortal Sovereign had been injured by the otherworldly demon stone, destroying his foundation to advance into the infinite Tao realm. By all logic, he should have hated the otherworldly demon race to the core. Yet he had willingly acknowledged them as his master. If the human sovereign knew this, his coffin lid probably wouldn't be able to stay shut. He had resisted the otherworldly demons his entire life, only for his own disciple to defect to them in the end. It was truly ironic. Sure enough, power could make people forget everything. I've already stepped into the infinite Tao realm. You are nothing but an ant, Su Zimo said calmly. But I do want to see the master behind you. As he spoke, he brought his hand down. A tremendous force stirred the winds and clouds across the sky. Booming rumbles echoed endlessly. After entering the infinite Tao realm, all of Su Zimo's primal Taos had merged into the Annihilation Edict. For example, at this moment, within his infinite Samsara demon eye, the Edict of Samsara had transformed into the Annihilation Edict. That terrifying power twisted all of space. With a thunderous boom, Mortal Sovereign was twisted directly into the void. Another deafening roar followed as Mortal Sovereign, wreathed in demonic energy, struggled free from the void. His hair was disheveled, and he roared in fury. I will kill you. A dog dares to kill me? Su Zimo said indifferently. He did not even draw his blade. He merely used the creation-devouring Godfinger. Upon entering the infinite Tao realm, this was a complete sublimation for him. Su Zimo had always been invincible among his peers. At the Tao fruit stage, he could already contend with infinite Tao cultivators. Now that he had truly reached the infinite Tao realm after forming his primordial spirit, killing someone of the same level was as easy as slaughtering a dog. The name Creation-Devouring Godfinger was no longer appropriate. Calling it the Absolute Annihilation Godfinger would be more fitting. This finger, infused with the Annihilation Edict that fused all forces together, descended like a heavenly pillar. Mortal Sovereign roared and tried to break through it. But all his efforts were futile. With a loud boom, his entire body was sent flying. His body was shattered, as if it might be annihilated at any moment. How is this possible? How can you be this strong? He roared unwillingly. Su Zimo did not even look at him. He was no longer worthy. Su Zimo raised his head, his gaze fixed tightly on the sky above. There, vast storms of demonic energy churned endlessly. Within the demonic tempest, countless silhouettes seemed to flicker and shift.
He he he.
Cold, sinister laughter echoed through the air. Amid the shadows of demonic figures, a single crimson eye appeared. Boy, you are quite impressive. Why not consider submitting to our otherworldly demons? I can grant you supreme divine abilities. Supreme divine abilities? Can they slay the heavens? Su Zimo asked with interest. To think that someone still wanted him to submit. The presence within the demonic aura seemed to fall silent for a moment. It clearly had not expected Su Zimo to ask such a question. Boy, that is far too distant for you. Su Zimo let out a cold laugh. Have the otherworldly demons' courage all been beaten out of you by the heavenly Tao? Boy, you are far too insolent. A furious roar came from the sky. Immediately, the demonic energy surged violently, and massive demonic meteors fell from the heavens, crashing towards Su Zimo.
Su Zimo snork only.
With a wave of his hand, he shattered all the demonic energy into nothingness. But in the next instant, a massive claw formed of demonic energy struck out, collided head-on with Su Zimo's fists. Boom! 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 Su Zimo was sent flying backward by a single blow. He looked up to see a figure cloaked entirely in demonic energy standing in the sky. Boy, you do have some strength. But this is not the capital that allows you to be arrogant before our otherworldly demon race, the figure said coldly.
Su Zimo smiled lightly.
With a flick of his hand, the otherworldly demon he had subdued earlier appeared before him. Now it's your turn. As soon as that otherworldly demon appeared, it shouted loudly. I am from the flame demons. May I ask which branch of the otherworldly demon race you belong to? Flame otherworldly demon? A cold snort came from the void. We are from the Crimson Blood Great Otherworldly Demons. Great Otherworldly Demon Clan? The flame otherworldly demon was startled. Even within the otherworldly demon race, there were many different clans. With numbers came hierarchy and distinctions of status. When the otherworldly demons had invaded the Great Beyond before, it was the flame otherworldly demons who had taken charge. Unfortunately, They suffered devastating losses and were nearly wiped out by the heavenly Tao. Who would have thought that now, upon their return, the otherworldly demons had dispatched the great otherworldly demon clan instead? Great otherworldly demon lord, the man before us wishes to cooperate with us. We are all on the same side, all on the same side. The flame otherworldly demon hurriedly said. A cold snort echoed from the void. He wants cooperation? Does he even have the qualifications? You'll know whether I'm qualified very soon, Su Zimo replied. He snapped his fingers. In the next moment, Shadow Tyrant swept through the void. Space shattered, forming a swirling vortex. Then, from the other side of the vortex, a figure slowly walked out. Ancestor, I'll leave it to you. The existence that emerged from the other side of the vortex was none other than the true martial progenitor. However, it was not his true body. Rather, it was a projection transmitted across space. Ever since arriving at the Jade Maiden Palace, Su Zimo had contacted the true martial progenitor. He needed to borrow his power. Otherworldly demons? The true martial progenitor looked at the scene in the void and asked calmly. He was aware of the otherworldly demons. Though he had never interacted with them directly, he had heard of them. Interesting, he added, glancing at Su Zimo. How do you want me to act? Just teach them a lesson. Su Zimo smiled. Who are you? The figure in the sky stared at the true martial progenitor and demanded. You are not worthy of knowing my name. The true martial progenitor shook his head. The figure in the sky seemed enraged. No one has ever dared refuse to answer a question from our great otherworldly demon clan. As he spoke, the demonic energy around him surged violently. Otherworldly demon domain. He dared not underestimate the true martial progenitor. The demonic energy around him formed a vast domain, within which he seemed like a god. Chaos Demon Legion. With his furious roar, endless demonic energy gathered together and surged toward the true martial progenitor. Not bad, the true martial progenitor said softly. He raised his hand and waved it casually. All the rampaging demonic energy was instantly annihilated within his palm. But, still not enough to reach the apex. He struck out with his palm. Boom! The figure was blasted away. He stumbled back hundreds of meters before finally stopping. He dropped to one knee, coughing blood incessantly. You, who exactly are you? The figure asked in horror as he looked up at the true martial progenitor. The true martial progenitor ignored him. Instead, he looked toward the sky. Is the otherworldly demon's leader not planning to come out and meet me? So there truly is an existence like you within the 9 heavens. An aged voice echoed from the sky. I also didn't expect the otherworldly demon race to have someone like you, the true martial progenitor replied. Although the otherworldly demon lord did not make a move, among cultivators, even the slightest perception was enough to gauge each other's strength. That's nothing, the aged voice said. Our otherworldly demon race spans the entire universe. There are countless existences stronger than me. So tell me, how do you wish to cooperate? The true martial progenitor smiled and pointed at Su Zimo. Today I am only acting as hired muscle. The one cooperating with you is him. The aged presence fell silent for a moment. Finally, it asked, what kind of cooperation are you proposing? Kill the heavenly Tao. We work together inside and out, Su Zimo said. And if we fail? The aged voice asked. There is no failure. Failure means death, Su Zimo replied. And if we succeed, how shall the spoils be divided? By individual ability, Su Zimo said. Of course, we won't discuss the details of cooperation yet. I'll just ask you one thing. Are you willing to cooperate? The otherworldly demons fell silent for a long time. At last, someone spoke. You should understand that our otherworldly demon race has many members and many clans. We are an extremely vast race. I alone cannot decide for all of them. Then go and discuss it, Su Zimo said. He pointed at the flame otherworldly demon before him. Let him relay messages between us. I need an answer as soon as possible. Only then can we plan our next steps. The otherworldly demon race fell silent again. Finally, they said, "The great beyond will soon be ruled by our otherworldly demon race. You must not interfere." "You cannot rule the great beyond," Su Zimo replied. "Why?" the otherworldly demons asked in confusion. At present, aside from Su Zimo, who had emerged out of nowhere, no one else seemed capable of stopping them. "We are about to take away the desolate tree. Once it is gone, the great beyond will be destroyed. It will be useless to you," Su Zimo said. In truth, he had other thoughts in mind. He simply did not reveal them all. The sky fell silent once more. "Go now. Our cooperation matters far more. Compared to the 9 heavens, what is this great beyond worth?" Su Zimo said. The presence in the heavens fell silent. It seemed to be weighing the pros and cons. "You should understand that the foundation of your otherworldly demon race is not here. If we truly tear things apart, the ones who suffer in the end will only be you," Su Zimo said again. "A wise man submits to circumstances. I believe the otherworldly demons are not a bunch of fools." Su Zimo's words enraged the otherworldly demons. But when they thought it through carefully, they had to admit that what he said made sense. "Then let the flame otherworldly demon serve as the messenger. We need to consult with the other otherworldly demons," the existence in the sky replied. Immediately, the demonic clouds that had been roiling across the heavens began to disperse. As the demonic clouds faded, the sky once again became clear. Su Zimo was not afraid that they would refuse. After all, this was the great beyond, not some other place. The heavenly Tao did not permit the existence of otherworldly demons here. The true martial progenitor also said, "Once you take the desolate tree, return as soon as possible. We cannot afford to delay." "I know," Su Zimo nodded. This was only a remnant projection of the true martial progenitor, and it soon dissipated. At that moment, a loud boom rang out. The sky cracked open. It seemed as if a meteor had fallen from the heavens and smashed violently into the ground. But upon closer inspection, it was no meteor at all. It was Bone Demon. He was gravely injured. Although both were Three Blossoms existences, even within the same realm there were differences in strength. The man guarding the tomb was clearly far stronger than Bone Demon. This was understandable. Bone Demon had been suppressed within the human sovereign palace for many years, while the man had been cultivating the entire time. As one waxed and the other waned, such a result was only natural. The broken sword descended from the sky. It stopped directly at Bone Demon's brow. Bone Demon's intention to struggle vanished instantly. He froze in place, terror filling his eyes. "Where is the otherworldly demon lord?" he asked. "He's already been sent away." Su Zimo waved his hand casually. "Kill him. Keeping such filth alive serves no purpose." The man nodded. The broken sword fell. It was terrifyingly powerful. Not only did it shatter Bone Demon's head, it also annihilated all of his divine soul. How to kill an infinite Tao cultivator? No one understood that better than another infinite Tao cultivator. Yet Bone Demon was a Three Blossoms existence, and killing him was not that easy. Even though the sword strike destroyed everything, a black glow still emerged from his corpse, fleeing toward the heavens. "Where do you think you're going?" the man shouted. He hurled the broken sword forward. In an instant, heaven and earth shook. Boundless power twisted and shredded the black aura. "Must you really wipe me out completely?" Bone Demon's furious and terrified voice rang out. "If the weeds are not pulled out by the roots, they will grow again when the spring wind blows," Su Zimo said calmly. Boom! The Tao runes on the broken sword flared brilliantly. This time, the black aura was completely ground to dust. Amid Bone Demon's screams, everything finally vanished into nothingness. The man retrieved his sword and stood still, then turned his gaze toward Su Zimo. "You promised me that you would borrow the desolate tree. 1 month. You must return it within 1 month," the man said after a brief silence.
Su Zimo nodded.
He himself was not particularly interested in the desolate tree. The man tore open space and departed. Beside him, Lu Suer seemed to realize something. She had been pondering the man's identity in silence. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. "Senior, are you Wood Ancestor?" she called out hurriedly. But the man did not answer her. He had already left. Su Zimo was also curious. "Who is Wood Ancestor?" he asked. "It said that he was our founding ancestor's Tao companion," Lu Suer replied. "I saw it in an ancient text. It says that Wood Ancestor once abandoned our founding ancestor in order to pursue the great Tao. From that point on, our Jade Maiden Palace never again allowed men to enter. Who would have thought that after the founding ancestor passed away, Wood Ancestor would remain guarding her tomb all this time?" Lu Suer sighed with emotion. Indeed, this was something no one had expected. Perhaps only the Arctic ancestor knew the truth. "I should be leaving as well," Su Zimo said. "Thank you, young Master Su, for saving our Jade Maiden Palace. We will remember this kindness," Lu Suer said solemnly. "I only acted for my own sake." Su Zimo waved his hand. "Still, with the 4 great factions either destroyed or severely weakened, if your Jade Maiden Palace seizes the opportunity, you may be able to unify the great beyond." Lu Suer was slightly tempted, but she still sighed and said, "I fear we lack the capability. The Arctic ancestor is gravely injured, and Wood Ancestor does not concern himself with such matters." Su Zimo said nothing more. After bidding farewell to Lu Suer, he entered the founding ancestor's tomb. The man was already waiting there. With a wave of his right hand, a spatial gate appeared before them. Within it, vast amounts of desolation edicts surged forth endlessly. It felt as though this was the very origin of the desolation edicts. The man stood before the spatial gate in silence for a long time. Finally, he said, "When Linger and I first arrived in the great beyond, this place was nothing but desolation. There were no living beings at all. We found the Genesis Island and uncovered the secret of this world. From then on, we settled down here." The man seemed to be reminiscing. They were the first living beings to arrive in the great beyond. Only later did the 5 great factions arise, ruling together, as more and more beings came here. Back then, he was full of ambition. He devoted himself entirely to seeking the Tao, abandoning everything else for it. But in the end, the Tao was not attained, and the one he loved had died. So he spent his life guarding the tomb. This became his final resting place. The man gathered his emotions. With a wave of his hand, the spatial gate opened with a boom. He and Su Zimo stepped inside. The space within was not very large. It was an independent world, within which only a single tree grew. A towering tree that rooted itself deep into the earth and connected to the heavens. The tree was immensely lush. Any single branch was thousands of meters thick and tens of thousands of meters long. The leaves growing upon it were dark yellow in color. Within those leaves lay vast, surging desolation edicts. The tree was flourishing in full splendor. Su Zimo knew that the great tree before him was the desolate tree, the true center of the great beyond, its very root. Without the desolate tree, the great beyond would likely cease to exist. Unlike the 9 heavens, the great beyond was more like a rootless duckweed, surviving only by relying on the desolate tree. That was why the man had given Su Zimo a time limit of 1 month. Exceed 1 month, and the great beyond would face the risk of total destruction. Su Zimo stepped before the desolate tree. This great tree had long since developed intelligence. Su Zimo did not act forcefully. Instead, he said, "I need your help to break a formation. Once it is done, I will return you." The desolate tree swayed, its desolation edicts surging violently. It seemed dissatisfied. The man beside him spoke to persuade it. "Desolate, just go with him. I have already given my word." Hearing the man's words, although the desolate tree was unwilling, it did not resist. After all, when Wood Ancestor first discovered the Genesis Island, the desolate tree was nothing more than a small sapling. Later, under the care and protection of Wood Ancestor and the founding ancestor of the Jade Maiden Palace, it was able to grow into what it was today. Moreover, the Jade Maiden Palace was established on the Genesis Island. Who was to say that its existence was not also meant to protect the desolate tree? At this moment, Su Zimo wrapped both arms around the trunk of the desolate tree. Power surged violently through his hands. With a thunderous boom, tremendous force rippled outward. He forcibly uprooted the desolate tree. Endless desolation edicts erupted in turmoil. The instant the tree was pulled out, the entire Great Beyond was affected. Boom, boom. The Great Beyond nearly collapsed. In many places, chasms formed that were impossible to cross. Even the very foundation of the Great Beyond began to crumble. However, the good news was that, without the erosion of the desolation edicts, flowers, grass, and trees actually began to grow in the Great Beyond. Yet this apparent prosperity was ultimately an illusion. It was merely the final flicker of life before the Great Beyond's destruction. Su Zimo pulled the desolate tree free. His comparatively small body stood in stark contrast to the massive desolate tree. When the entire tree had finally been uprooted, it began to shrink. In the end, it was reduced to the size of a palm and was stored away by Su Zimo in his storage ring. The desolate tree could grow large or small at will. That was nothing particularly miraculous. After bidding farewell to the man, Su Zimo did not immediately leave the Great Beyond. Instead, he made a trip to the Luo clan. There, he found Luo Mingyue. Ever since Mortal Sovereign had been killed by him, the entire Luo household had been left leaderless. Su Zimo had once promised the human sovereign that he would find him a successor. Su Zimo himself had no interest in the human sovereign's inheritance. Luo Mingyue was the best candidate he could find. After hearing Su Zimo's words, Luo Mingyue did not hesitate in the slightest. She said directly, "I am willing." "You've thought it through?" Su Zimo asked. "Although you will gain immense power because of this, you will also have to shoulder the human sovereign's will. You may not be able to escape it for the rest of your life. I will do my best. The human sovereign achieved great merits throughout his life. I may not be able to match him, but I also hope that the Great Beyond can become a better place," Luo Mingyue replied. Su Zimo nodded. He handed the jade token to Luo Mingyue. In an instant, powerful energy enveloped her. The power grew stronger and stronger. Eventually, it swallowed Luo Mingyue completely. Su Zimo knew that what awaited her next was the acceptance of the inheritance, which might take a very long time. So he did not interfere any further. It was time for him to return to the absolute God Heaven. On the way here, the true martial progenitor had sent him. For the return trip, Su Zimo still needed to rely on the Jade Maiden Palace's power. This was because the Jade Maiden Palace possessed a formation that led to the 9 heavens. Although this formation had not been used for a long time, back then, Wood Ancestor and the founding ancestor of the Jade Maiden Palace had prepared it as a precaution. Su Zimo stepped into the formation. He knew that he was bidding farewell to the Great Beyond. Perhaps he would never return again. The power of the formation engulfed him. Boom, boom. The heavens trembled as another tedious journey through space began. After an unknown amount of time, Su Zimo sensed that the spatial tunnel suddenly became unstable. Felt as though some force was attacking him. "What is this?" he frowned slightly. One had to know that spatial traversal occurred in deep layers of space at extremely high speeds. Ordinary existences could not possibly track his whereabouts. Yet this force seemed to have locked onto him. It continuously attacked the surrounding space, attempting to forcibly pull him out. Su Zimo frowned slightly. He considered going out to take a look. But after thinking it over, given the current circumstances, it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. The spatial tunnel continued to be damaged. In the end, as the force grew stronger and stronger, it still shattered the tunnel. When Su Zimo appeared again, he found that he had already returned to the 9 heavens. He was standing atop a mountain. "As long as I'm back in the 9 heavens, that's fine," he thought to himself. He scanned his surroundings. Then he said coldly, "Whoever dared to drag me down, why don't you have the courage to show yourself? Young master really is forgetful." A soft laugh came from nearby. Space shattered. A figure appeared beside him. The figure looked like a celestial fairy. Her long hair was braided and draped over her shoulder. She wore a flowing purple immortal dress. This figure was none other than Miss Jing. Miss Jing, a name that was both unfamiliar and familiar. Su Zimo had once suspected her, unsure of her motives for approaching him. Later, she had escaped in time. The two had engaged in secret struggles. But afterward, as Su Zimo roamed the 9 heavens, he had not seen her for a long time. "It's you," Su Zimo frowned slightly. "So young master still remembers me," Miss Jing said with a smile. "Who exactly are you?" Su Zimo asked. "That's not important." Miss Jing shook her head. "I came to see young master only to ask for one thing." Su Zimo's frown deepened. "Young Master Su, give me the desolate tree. Who exactly are you?"
Su Zimo Snock Gonli.
"Why ask so much when you're already a dead man?" A heavy snort suddenly came from beside them. A towering man, as massive as a mountain, appeared. His body was extremely robust, like a mountain peak. With every step he took, the ground trembled, showing just how terrifying his strength was. Most striking of all were his 2 shoulders. On one shoulder was a tiger's head, and on the other was a lion's head. Including his human head, he had 3 heads in total. "I have come under my master's orders to capture you. If you know what's good for you, surrender without resistance," the man said. "And you think you're worthy?"
Su Zimo Riplit Canli.
The man did not respond. Instead, he looked toward Miss Jing. "Seal the void for me. I'll fight him," he ordered. Miss Jing smiled slightly. "Forgive me, young master." The power around Miss Jing began to surge violently. In the end, that power split into 3 streams of immortal mist. Heaven, earth, and man. These were the 3 immortal mist. They represented time, space, and the mortal world. The 3 immortal mist originated from the 3 immortal Tao. "Seal," Miss Jing said as she waved both hands. Vast power expanded like a long rainbow. In the end, it sealed off everything within several miles around Su Zimo. The 3-headed man then stepped forward, 1 step at a time. With a wave of his hand, the tiger head roared and lunged straight toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo answered with a punch of his own. Boom! Both figures were forced to retreat. "Beast edicts." Su Zimo frowned slightly. The man was indeed using beast-type edicts. That had just been the tiger. Now the lion head also began to roar.
Su Zimo Snock Gonli.
He took the initiative, stirring up the wind and clouds of the heavens. Inside Su Zimo's body, powerful force vortices rotated incessantly. After entering the infinite Tao realm, Su Zimo discovered that the number of power vortexes he could condense had increased significantly, now numbering in the hundreds of trillions within his body. As a result, the power of the heaven-shattering force became far stronger than before. He struck out with a palm. In an instant, heaven and earth surged with wind and clouds, and the entire void began to shatter continuously. That palm descended from the sky. The man-beast frowned. Before he even had time to resist, he was smashed into a lump of flesh by Su Zimo's strike. Yet, in the next moment, the man-beast returned to his original state, as if he had suffered no damage at all. "I am immortal," the man sneered. "Only I can kill you. You cannot kill me. Even the heavenly Tao can be slain. Where does eternal life come from in this world?"
Su Zimo Snock Gonli.
His absolute annihilation God eye opened. The annihilation aura between heaven and earth twisted everything. The man-beast was shredded once again. Su Zimo carefully observed the man's resurrection. Finally, he noticed something unusual. Every time the man died, a surge of life energy would erupt from within his body. It was an extremely powerful life aura, likely originating from something specific. After being killed repeatedly by Su Zimo, the man-beast became utterly furious. He roared incessantly. From his shoulders, the forms of a tiger and a lion manifested. Roar, roar, roar. The 2 beasts roared as they charged toward Su Zimo. These were manifestations of beast edicts. They carried a dense aura of the king of all beasts. Shadow Tyrant leaped from Su Zimo's hand. With one slash each, he destroyed both the lion and the tiger. Immediately after, Su Zimo closed in and struck again, severing all three of the man-beast's heads in a single blow. At this moment, Su Zimo was like a butcher. He dismembered the lion-tiger's corpse, breaking bones and stripping flesh. In the end, he found the object that was emitting the life aura. It was a golden bone. The reason the man-beast could resurrect again and again was entirely because of this golden bone. Su Zimo placed it in his palm, yet could not see anything unusual about it. Interesting, he said. He put the golden bone away, planning to have the true martial progenitor examine it later. As for the man-beast, his expression changed drastically as he began to struggle frantically. "Give it back to me. Give that thing back to me. I beg you." At this moment, the man-beast's entire body trembled. In an instant, he turned into a pile of bones. Su Zimo looked at the bones. They were already somewhat decayed. Judging by their condition, they had clearly been dead for a very long time. He was shocked. A pile of bones that had been dead for so long had actually come back to life because of that small golden bone. This situation was not far removed from the creation of life itself. Su Zimo raised his head and looked toward Miss Jing in the sky. She did not seem surprised that Su Zimo had killed the man-beast. "You were testing me, using that man to test me," Su Zimo said. "Young master truly is astonishing," Miss Jing replied with a smile. "When we first met, you were still a grand emperor, newly bearing the heaven's will. I never imagined that you would already reach the infinite Tao realm." Su Zimo ignored her words and instead asked, "What is your relationship with?" "4. The number 4. Back when Su Zimo had traveled through the river of time to trace Miss Jing's origin, all he had obtained was the number 4. He had pondered it endlessly, yet could not understand it. Still, he believed that such numbers must have meaning. Numbers were the foundation of edicts. Hearing Su Zimo's question, Miss Jing looked surprised. "You actually know that great being's name?" "Sometimes I'm really curious," Su Zimo said. "There are always some inexplicable people who want to kill me, to lay schemes against me." This was something Su Zimo could never quite understand. The heavenly Tao wanting to kill him made sense, since he harbored the ambition to slay the heavens. But those inexplicable people, even if it was because of his previous incarnation, that incarnation was already dead. Shouldn't dust return to dust and earth to earth? "The great being you speak of, what kind of existence is he?" Su Zimo asked. "That's not something you need to know," Miss Jing replied. "To be honest, I really don't want to be your enemy. But today, that great being has given an order, so I still have to capture you." "Then I'd like to see how you plan to capture me," Su Zimo snorted. Miss Jing's expression remained calm. A strand of black spirit energy surged between her fingers, and her hand began to draw in the void. Runes appeared one after another in the air. The moment the runes took shape, the entire world fell into silence, because heaven and earth were sealed and suppressed. 8 Vanguard Generals, activate the Great Teleportation Formation, Miss Jing said. As her voice fell, 8 figures hidden within the void appeared around them. Each of these figures was perfectly merged with the void, exceptionally well concealed. "Rise!" The 8 shouted in unison. The entire world began to rage violently. It was as if heaven and earth were about to be overturned. Then, the void where Su Zimo stood began to rotate. Su Zimo frowned, sensing that the situation was not simple. Because after this space was sealed, even the rules themselves were sealed. Su Zimo looked up and saw that the source lay in the runes in the sky. He was somewhat surprised. This formation was truly profound. Su Zimo attacked the formation repeatedly, but it was all in vain. The formation's defensive power was absurdly strong. The rotation of the formation grew faster and faster. It was unclear where it intended to send him. Su Zimo was considering whether he should use the power of the God world to escape. Just then, a massive hand suddenly extended from the sky. The moment it appeared, it instantly immobilized the rotating formation. "Come back quickly," a voice sounded. Su Zimo heard it clearly. It was the voice of the true martial progenitor. The voice shattered the formation and reached straight toward Miss Jing. Miss Jing's expression changed drastically. She hurriedly cried out, "My lord, save me!" In that instant, a transcendent power erupted from Miss Jing's body. Boom! That power wrapped around Miss Jing and fled into the distance. Even the true martial progenitor's giant hand was scattered by it. What kind of power was that? Su Zimo was astonished. The power flashed past and then vanished completely. "Return as soon as possible. Everything is already prepared," the true martial progenitor said, and his giant hand disappeared. "We'll talk when you're back." Su Zimo knew that he was not far from the true martial sacred ground. He glanced at his direction and began walking through the void. Originally, he planned to return directly. However, on the way back, he seemed to sense something. He stepped out of the void. Before him stood a city. The city was massive, but what was astonishing was that its walls were golden. The city walls were actually built from gold. That was truly extravagant. Su Zimo prepared to enter the city to take a look. Not far away, he saw a small group approaching. This group appeared to consist entirely of demonic beasts. They were members of the beast race who had taken human form. There were both men and women among them, though they all seemed to belong to the same clan. "Patriarch, I'm telling you, I really did see that giant hand earlier." "That's right. That hand just descended from the sky. It seemed to pull something out of Golden City. It was incredibly spectacular." "Really? Why didn't I see it?" "It happened in an instant. If you weren't paying attention, of course you wouldn't see it." The beasts chattered excitedly, which caught Su Zimo's attention. He stepped forward and asked, "Everyone, I just heard you mention seeing a giant hand?" "Yes," a young demon replied. But beside him, the clan leader of the beast race snorted coldly. "Wang Dezhuang, did you forget the clan rules?" The young demon immediately shrank back, not daring to speak anymore. The beast race leader was a woman. She appeared to be from the snow rabbit race, with white fur still visible on her body and a fluffy tail behind her. "This fellow cultivator, if you have questions, you may ask me. These children speak without restraint. Their words cannot be trusted," the clan leader Morong Shui said, looking at Su Zimo. Su Zimo could see the caution and vigilance in her eyes. He smiled and said, "I just wanted to ask about that giant hand." "We have not seen any giant hand. Fellow Taoist may want to ask someone else," Morong Shui replied. Su Zimo shook his head and did not press the matter. He walked toward the city. The towering city gates bore a plaque with the glowing characters of Golden City. After entering, Su Zimo discovered that Golden City truly lived up to its name. Even the roads were paved with gold. The trees lining the streets were golden trees. Gems, glazed crystal, and even diamonds could be seen everywhere in the city. "Interesting," he said with a light laugh. He found a seat in an inn and casually ordered a few dishes. Su Zimo had planned to ask the waiter about the situation. However, the inn was anything but peaceful at the moment. "Waiter, why is there a cockroach in my food?" A burly man eating there grabbed the waiter by the collar and shouted fiercely. The waiter was terrified and quickly explained, "Sir, please don't be angry. We'll replace the dish for you." "Replace it? I've already finished eating," the burly man roared. He threw a punch and smashed the waiter's head apart. This instantly terrified everyone present. For a moment, the entire inn was on edge. The innkeeper was an elderly man with a mustache. With a single glance from him, more than a dozen waiters picked up clubs and surrounded the man. "Sir, you've gone too far," the old man said calmly. "It's just a cockroach. Did you really need to kill someone over it?" "I'm someone under the young lord," the burly man sneered. "You dare touch me?" In an instant, the entire inn fell silent. At the mention of the young lord, before the shopkeeper could say anything, the waiters threw their clubs to the ground. "Sir, I have elders above and children below. Please spare my life," the shopkeeper begged. They all knew who the young lord was. He was the little tyrant of the entire Golden City. The burly man looked smug and sneered. I can spare you if you want. Prepare 100 taels of gold, and I'll let this go. The shopkeeper had no choice. Even after gathering everything he had, he could barely scrape together 90 taels. The burly man took the gold and swaggered out. The diners present all sat in silence, none daring to speak up. In Golden City, the young lord was the law. How are we supposed to live like this? The shopkeeper slumped to the ground in despair. At that moment, a massive chunk of gold fell in front of him. Answer one question for me, and this gold is yours. The shopkeeper looked up to see Su Zimo standing before him. Sir, are you serious? The shopkeeper asked. Gold means nothing to me, Su Zimo said. Earlier, did you see a giant hand descend on Golden City? I did. The shopkeeper nodded frantically. That hand landed on the young lord's residence. I saw it with my own eyes. That hand pulled off one of the Golden One's arms. Who is the young lord? And who is the Golden One? Su Zimo asked. Our Golden City has a golden tree. It's said to have been planted by an immortal. The Golden One is the guardian of the golden tree. As for the young lord, he is the Golden One's son. The shopkeeper briefly explained their relationship. Those who live in Golden City are not humans. We are the gold folk. Our food and cultivation both rely on gold. That's why the Golden One rules Golden City. None of us dare provoke him or the young lord. You said the giant hand tore off the Golden One's arm? Su Zimo asked. Are you sure? Absolutely. I saw it with my own eyes. The shopkeeper nodded. Su Zimo took out the golden bone he had previously obtained from the man-beast. He placed it before the shopkeeper and asked, Take a look. Do you recognize this? Yes, it's an arm. The Golden One's arm, the shopkeeper said excitedly. Su Zimo now had a clear guess in his mind. No wonder the golden bone had reacted when he flew over the city earlier. Where is the golden tree? Su Zimo asked. After the shopkeeper pointed out the way, Su Zimo left. The golden tree was located beneath Golden City. To be precise, the entire Golden City was built upon its branches. What do you think you're doing? Release our clan leader at once. Kid, let your clan leader entertain us a bit, and we'll let her go. Why are you making such a fuss? You should ask around. In Golden City, who dares offend our young lord? When Su Zimo arrived at the Golden Palace, he happened to see the place in complete chaos. The snow rabbit race he had seen earlier was now surrounded by a group of people. At the front stood a handsome young man. Beside him were several lackeys. One of them was the same man who had caused trouble at the inn earlier. Looks like my guess was right, Su Zimo thought to himself. At this moment, the snow rabbits were being suppressed. Morong Shui had been captured and was being dragged toward the Golden Palace. Su Zimo ignored them and stepped forward, asking, Who is the young lord? Kid, what do you want with me? The young man asked lazily. I want to meet your father, Su Zimo said with a smile. What are you supposed to be? The young lord snapped. Before he could finish speaking, Su Zimo had already appeared in front of him. He grabbed the young lord by the neck and smiled. Tell me, if I twist your neck, will you die? Don't rush. You just want to see my father, right? That old man is in the Golden Garden. I'll take you there right now, the young lord said hurriedly. He ordered his lackeys to lead the way ahead. This young master seemed extremely afraid of death. Even when facing his own father, he called him old thing again and again, showing not the slightest respect. But the guards were already used to it. The Golden One guarded the golden tree and never left that place. None of the young masters had anyone to teach them from childhood. Over time, this led to an indulgent and arrogant personality. He was a complete playboy. In the Golden City, no one dared to disobey him. No one even dared to touch him. Because most of the residents of the Golden City belonged to the Goldfolk. No one could escape the restraints of the Golden Tree. Led by the young master, the group quickly arrived inside the Golden Hall. This Golden Hall was especially unique. Although it was built of gold, the gold itself radiated a powerful vitality. It made Su Zimo think of that piece of golden bone, though the life aura here was not as strong as the golden bones. At last, they reached the depths of the golden hall. Su Zimo looked up. He could already see the golden tree. It towered into the sky, as if its crown were connected to the heavens themselves. Logically speaking, such a tall tree should be visible from anywhere. Yet, for some special reason, the golden tree could only be seen within the golden hall. Brilliant golden light poured out from it, so dazzling it was almost blinding. Roots, trunk, branches, leaves, all of it gleamed with golden radiance. From a distance, the scene was truly shocking. The golden tree grew within a garden area inside the hall. But before Su Zimo and the others could enter, a vast voice rang out. "Stop right there. Old thing, save me quickly," the young master shouted. The garden fell silent for a long time. Finally, the voice spoke again. "No matter who you are, none of you may enter this place. Otherwise, you will be slain." Hearing this, Su Zimo sneered. "I came here only to ask a few questions. I hope you can enlighten me," he replied. "What do you want to know?" "I heard that earlier. A giant hand descended from the sky and pulled something out from this place," Su Zimo said. "No such thing," the voice from the garden answered. "If that's your attitude, then I think we'll have to resolve this with force," Su Zimo said calmly. He kicked the young master away with a single blow. Boom! The golden wall of the garden was smashed and collapsed. Perhaps startled by the explosion, 7 golden leaves floated out from within the garden. These 7 golden leaves seemed to possess souls of their own. They transformed into 7 warriors clad in golden armor. "Kill!" The golden-armored soldiers roared as they charged toward Su Zimo. These soldiers seemed to feel no pain. Every time Su Zimo knocked them to the ground, they stood back up again. Moreover, their terrifying regenerative power was on par with that of the man-beast from before. "Interesting," Su Zimo said. This level of life recovery was even more terrifying than his own tree of life. It even carried a direct resurrection effect, far stronger than the inheritance he had learned from the wood god, Jumong. This only made Su Zimo more interested. With a wave of his hand, he did not kill the 7 golden-armored soldiers. Instead, he split his spirit energy into strands of rope and bound all 7 of them tightly. As the saying goes, softness overcomes hardness. This was exactly that. Now restrained by Su Zimo, the golden-armored soldiers roared endlessly, but they still could not tear apart his bindings. Su Zimo walked alone into the golden garden. The golden garden was truly defiant of heaven. It did not contain only the golden tree. Many flowers and plants bloomed competitively within it. As expected, all of these flowers and trees were also made of gold. When Su Zimo reached the golden tree, he did not fully grasp its scale from afar. Only when standing beneath it did he realize its sheer majesty. The towering golden tree stood between heaven and earth, soaring into the clouds, stretching endlessly until it vanished into the vastness of the horizon. This golden tree seemed to grow alone within a separate space. Beneath the tree sat a giant. Presumably, this was the Golden One who guarded the golden tree. When he saw Su Zimo arrive, the Golden One slowly rose to his feet. With that single movement, the entire world seemed to tremble. The Golden One spread his right hand. In an instant, an overwhelming force twisted and crushed toward Su Zimo, trapping him. "In this world, I am a god," the Golden One declared.
Su Zimo sneered.
"Even if you are a god, I will still kill you. What is a god, anyway? Just another stepping stone." Behind him, Shadow Tyrant drew itself from its sheath. Boom! The blade aura shattered the void and flew into Su Zimo's hand. He stepped forward, crushing the void beneath his foot, and slashed straight at the Golden One. "Kill!" The Golden One did not dodge. He shattered the void with a punch of his own and smashed it toward Su Zimo. Boom! Blade and fist collided. Su Zimo felt a powerful force surge toward him. It was strange. This Golden One clearly had no cultivation level. In other words, he had never cultivated. Yet relying purely on physical strength, he could still clash head-on with Suzumo. Interesting, Suzumo said as he unleashed the second form of his saber. 9 Hell's desolation. Slay myriad immortals. Heavenly phenomena erupted. Hell and the heavenly court both manifested in the mortal world. Although the Golden One's strength was immense, under wave after wave of Suzumo's attacks, he eventually could not hold on. One of his arms was severed by Suzumo's blade. The Golden One did not feel pain. He waved his hand, and a branch fell from the golden tree. Merging with his body, it formed a new arm. Your attacks are futile, the Golden One said. Whether they're futile or not is for me to decide. Suzumo snorted. He swung his long blade again. The void shattered. Saber intent surged like a prison, like an ocean. A terrifying power rose skyward. Suzumo coldly said, "Since I can't kill you, then I'll cut down this tree. Let's see who can still protect you." With that, Suzumo stepped into the air and slashed toward the golden tree. "Don't!" the Golden One shouted, trying to stop him, but it was useless. Boom! The overwhelming power of Shadow Tyrant struck the golden tree again and again. From being utterly indestructible, the tree began to shake. "Stop!" the Golden One roared in rage. In desperation, he actually began to block the blade for the golden tree. Every time Suzumo's Shadow Tyrant came down, the Golden One stood beneath it, taking the strike head-on with his own body. "Why go this far?" Suzumo said. "Is this golden tree really that important to you?" "More important than my life," the Golden One replied firmly. "Then answer my questions. Perhaps I'll stop cutting down the tree," Suzumo said. "That's impossible. No one can resist the temptation of the divine tree." The Golden One shook his head. "The divine tree, since it can't be used by me, then it will be destroyed." The blade energy in Suzumo's hand grew more and more violent. He showed no restraint at all. Slash after slash fell. Before long, the Golden One could no longer hold on and was nearly chopped into minced flesh. Still not willing to speak? Suzumo kicked the Golden One away, sending him crashing heavily into the golden tree. Crack! A golden branch actually snapped. I'll tell you," the Golden One shouted. "Don't harm my golden tree. Answer my previous question," Suzumo said. Yes, a giant hand did descend from the sky and took away a bone." The Golden One nodded. "Where did the bone come from?" Suzumo asked again. The Golden One hesitated. Seeing Suzumo raise Shadow Tyrant once more, ready to strike, he hurriedly replied, "It was the foundation of the golden tree. The foundation of the golden tree is a severed arm. That bone was extracted from within the arm." This answer surprised Suzumo. Such a massive golden tree had actually been nurtured by a single arm. "Where is the arm?" Suzumo asked. Although the Golden One did not answer verbally, his gaze fell toward the base of the golden tree. "Don't dig it up. The golden tree will wither and die." "I'm just taking a look," Suzumo said. "How can a single arm possess the power of rebirth?" Ignoring the Golden One's objections, Suzumo began digging beneath the tree. Shadow Tyrant was incomparably tough. Digging through the ground was effortless. Very soon he dug 1,000 meters down. At the roots of the golden tree lay an arm, mostly decayed. This arm was extremely special. It was covered in complete Dao runes. The sound of the great Dao echoed around it, and visions continuously manifested. Even after countless years as a severed limb, it could still produce such phenomena. One could imagine how powerful this arm had once been. Suzumo reached out to take the arm. A rebound force erupted from it and repelled him. "A masterless arm dares to resist me?" Suzumo said coldly. The Edict of Annihilation roared endlessly. Terrifying annihilation power spread across the blade of Shadow Tyrant, continuously shattering the arm's resistance. Finally, Suzumo's right hand grasped the arm. Before he could properly study or feel it, a surge of power suddenly welled up from the arm and rushed straight into his body. Suzumo was startled. It did not give him any chance to react. After absorbing that power, Su Zimo discovered that the arm no longer contained any trace of divinity. He carefully sensed the energy within his body. Only a vague feedback emerged. Life 2. A number. 2 characters. Felt strange. Somewhat familiar, yet also very unfamiliar. Above ground, the Golden One was still waiting. Su Zimo knew that although the arm still contained residual power, its true mystery had already been obtained by him. He said nothing more and climbed out of the pit. Su Zimo thought to himself that the information he had obtained was still insufficient. It seemed he would need more power. Since there was an arm, there must also be other body parts. He could pay special attention to such things in the future. Do you know the origin of that giant hand? Su Zimo asked. The Golden One shook his head. Su Zimo did not say anything else. He prepared to step into the void and leave. Before departing, he turned back and glanced once more at the Golden City. Su Zimo seemed to understand something. Among the myriad races of this world, there was actually no Goldfolk. The so-called Goldfolk, whether the Golden One or the entire Golden City and its inhabitants, were most likely all evolved from that arm. They were not truly living beings. Yet they already possessed everything a living being should have. Is this some kind of experiment? Su Zimo muttered to himself. This time, Su Zimo did not linger. 7 days later, he returned to the true martial sacred ground. Since being transformed into a cultivation paradise by the true martial progenitor, the sect's spirit energy density and cultivation speed had increased countless times over. During this period, the true martial sacred ground had opened its gates wide and recruited billions of prodigies and cultivators from the absolute God heaven. Of course, not just anyone could join the true martial sacred ground. The most important criterion was character. After personally experiencing the near destruction of the sect, many within the sect had come to understand that having virtue without talent was not enough. If the true martial sacred ground fell into danger again, such people would not help. Instead, they would scatter like startled birds. Such situations had to be prevented. Therefore, when recruiting disciples, the true martial sacred ground valued moral character even more than talent. When Su Zimo returned to the sect, it happened to be another recruitment day. He grew curious. So instead of flying through the air, he walked up from the mountain gate. At this moment, he concealed his aura and looked just like an ordinary person. Su Zimo wanted to see what the true martial sacred ground was like now. After all, after the true martial progenitor's campaign against the heavens, the sect had been handed over to him. The area around the mountain gate was rather crowded. People came in an endless stream to register. Many were chatting animatedly. I heard this is the last time the true martial sacred ground will recruit disciples. They're preparing to ascend as an entire sect to the upper heavens, the core of our 9 heavens. Who doesn't know that? The spread throughout the 9 heavens. I have to get selected this time and see the prosperity of the upper heavens. I'm a bit worried. In the absolute God heaven, the true martial sacred ground is an absolute ruler. But in the upper heavens, people are so strong. Will they target us? The crowd buzzed with discussion. Su Zimo blended into the line without drawing attention, and no one paid him any mind. Finally, the testing began. The true martial sacred grounds examination had 2 parts. The first tested aptitude. The second tested courage. This so-called courage was actually a measure of loyalty to the sect. The sect understood that newly joined disciples lacked a sense of belonging, so the loyalty requirement was not high. As long as they would not flee at critical moments, that was enough. The second test of courage involved an illusion array. As for what existed within the illusion, only those who experienced it would know. During the first test, the true martial sacred ground brought out a Tao stone. It was used specifically to test one's foundation. Among the crowd, one person stood out as particularly flamboyant. He walked with his arms around 2 companions, while several lackeys followed behind him. Among so many people, he was an eye-catching presence. Young Master Ming, if they knew your talent, they'd be begging you to join. Why would they even need a test? One lackey said fawningly. The young man waved his hand and smiled. That may be true, but formalities still matter. I possess the ancient Buddha God King physique. Being able to join the true martial sacred ground is a blessing they've waited many years for. As his words fell, a doubtful voice sounded nearby. Is the ancient Buddha God King physique really that powerful? The speaker was none other than Su Zimo. As soon as he spoke, countless gazes turned toward him. Kid, what did you say? One of the lackeys stepped forward aggressively. Is the ancient Buddha God King physique really that powerful? Su Zimo asked with some confusion. He had seen many constitutions before. This ancient Buddha God King physique did not seem particularly high-ranking. The lackey snorted coldly and stepped forward. Kid, do you even know how powerful the ancient Buddha God King physique is? As long as our young master cultivates step by step, once he descends, he is destined to become a great Buddha. If that's the case, shouldn't he join Buddhism instead? Why come to the true martial sacred ground? Su Zimo asked in return. This left the lackey momentarily speechless. He snorted again and replied, Our young master is honoring the true martial sacred ground by coming here. Kid, where did you crawl out from? As for me, I'm just a nobody, here to join the true martial sacred ground. Su Zimo replied with interest. At that moment, disciples nearby stepped forward and instructed everyone to approach the Tao testing stone to test their aptitude. Kid, dare to compete with me? The young man with the ancient Buddha God King physique asked. His name was Cloud Prince. A faint Buddhist glow radiated from his body, and his Buddhist nature was extremely strong. Compete in what? Su Zimo asked. 2 rounds of assessment. Whoever is stronger, the other acknowledges him as Big Brother, Cloud Prince replied. No need for that. I'm not lacking little brothers. Su Zimo waved his hand and said, How about this instead? Whoever loses strips off his pants and runs 1 lap around the true martial sacred ground. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding crowd became interested. That's interesting. Right. Let's bet on that. The crowd buzzed with discussion. This made Cloud Prince hesitate. For a man, pride was everything. If he lost, how could he ever show his face in the true martial sacred ground again? No, that's impossible. How could I lose? He shook his head, casting aside those irrelevant thoughts. Fine, let's do it. Who's afraid of who? He said. Su Zimo smiled. At that moment, many of the examinees had already stepped up to the Tao testing stone. The Tao testing stone was divided into 10 levels. Based on one's aptitude and potential, it would give a rating. Everyone's attention was drawn to the test. Wang Ping, 3 Tao aptitude. No way, I only have 3 Tao aptitude? The young man said in disbelief. In our East River village, no one can beat me. Zhang Defang, 4 Tao aptitude. No way, I have the Sword Tao sovereign physique. How am I only 4 Tao aptitude? Amid the constant discussion, everyone gradually realized something. The true martial sacred grounds testing was far stricter than expected. Some of these people would be considered top geniuses in other factions. Yet here, in the true martial sacred ground, they were only average. This is interesting, Cloud Prince said with intrigue. He glanced at Su Zimo. Kid, if you're scared, it's too late now. Su Zimo did not respond. Finally, it was the 2 of them who were up next. Cloud Prince stepped forward first, confidently placing his hand on the Tao testing stone. It was clear that he was full of confidence, without the slightest worry. When his right hand landed on the stone, a loud boom rang out. The entire Tao testing stone erupted with a powerful light. Just from the aura alone, it was clear this light was extraordinary. On the stone, points of light surged upward. 5 Tao, 6 Tao, 7 Tao, 8 Tao. In the end, Cloud Prince's aptitude settled at 8 Tao aptitude. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. 8 Tao aptitude was truly exaggerated. He was undoubtedly the strongest among all the examinees present. Before this, most people had been hovering around 3 or 4 Tao. I thought it would be 9 Tao aptitude, Cloud Prince said with a sigh. Despite his words, The smugness on his face was obvious to anyone. He turned to look at Su Zimo. "Hurry up. It's your turn now." Su Zimo shook his head. He walked forward step by step and placed his palm on the Dao testing stone. Everyone watched with bated breath. The Dao testing stone first fell into silence. "No way. Not even one Dao aptitude," someone said in confusion. "That can't be right. Is he trash to this extent?" Others murmured. As the crowd discussed, a light unlike anything before suddenly exploded outward. It turned out that the Dao testing stone had not been inactive earlier. Rather, the movement was too great, causing the stone to fall silent for a moment, as if it had lagged. On the Dao testing stone, the aptitude level shot upward like a rocket. In an instant, it reached 9 Dao aptitude. This is impossible." Cloud Prince's face changed dramatically. But in the very next moment, a loud boom echoed. The Dao testing stone shattered. The scene stunned everyone. The Dao testing stone had broken. Was it because the talent was too high to be measured? Or was the Dao testing stone broken? The crowd erupted into discussion. At that moment, one of the examiners said calmly, "Some people's aptitude is beyond what the Dao testing stone can measure. The Dao testing stone does not break." With those words, all speculation came to an end. There was no doubt. Su Zimo had won. Cloud Prince's face turned ugly, filled with anger. "Sigh! I've made a fool of myself in front of everyone." Su Zimo shook his head. "This bit of aptitude really isn't worth mentioning." The crowd was speechless. This guy was really good at showing off. Su Zimo then looked at Cloud Prince and smiled. "Ready to take off your pants?" "Don't go too far," Cloud Prince snorted coldly. "There's still the second round. Who wins or loses isn't decided yet." Su Zimo shook his head and laughed. This man really wouldn't give up until he hit the Yellow River. He said nothing more. Soon, the first round of testing concluded. Su Zimo was the undisputed first place. Cloud Prince naturally came in second. After that, there were also some disciples with decent aptitude. Some had 7 Dao aptitude, others 6 Dao. The disciples began leading the newly tested candidates toward the second round. The second round tested courage and also involved loyalty. It was an illusion array. But this was no ordinary illusion. It was said that for people at their level, once trapped in the illusion, it was very difficult to wake up. This round tested not only whether one could break the array, but also how long it took. One disciple entered first. Not long after, he ran out in a crazed state. "This formation is pretty powerful," the crowd murmured. Sure enough, more than 10 people in a row became lost in the illusion. Before long, it was Su Zimo and Cloud Prince's turn. "Just wait. I'll definitely beat you." Cloud Prince turned and said fiercely to Su Zimo. He looked like a mouse whose tail had been stepped on. Su Zimo merely smiled calmly the entire time. After Cloud Prince entered, everyone grew curious. "How long do you think he'll take to come out?" 1 minute. "I guess 3 minutes." The crowd discussed animatedly. But after only 30 seconds had passed, Cloud Prince calmly walked out. "How was it?" Cloud Prince said smugly. 30 seconds. Why don't you just admit defeat?" "Too slow." Su Zimo shook his head. "You hearing Su Zimo's disdain?" Cloud Prince sneered. "Then let's wait and see." Su Zimo slowly stepped into the formation. The moment he entered, the formation activated. Somewhat interesting, but that's all it is. Su Zimo sensed it briefly and then shook his head. This formation suppressed one's consciousness and then manifested whatever lay in one's heart. Compared to ordinary illusion arrays, it was far more realistic. From the outside, after Su Zimo entered the illusion array, less than 3 seconds passed before he walked back out. From start to finish, it took less than 5 seconds. How can this be? Cloud Prince was completely dumbfounded. He stared in disbelief. This is impossible. Did the formation even activate? What? Can't accept losing? Su Zimo asked. Cloud Prince fell silent for a moment. Take off your pants. Take off your pants. The onlookers grew even more excited, shouting and jeering. Cloud Prince's face turned ashen. A true man keeps his word, he snorted coldly. Who's afraid of who? It's just that thing anyway. I don't believe none of you have one. With that, Cloud Prince stripped himself bare. He was at least willing to accept defeat. He did what he said he would do and immediately started running along the mountain path. This guy, the crowd felt awkward. They had only been joking around. They never expected him to actually do it. If someone truly had no shame, then there was no one like him. Su Zimo, on the contrary, found this guy rather likable. It was just a farce and he had had enough fun. He turned to one of the examining disciples and asked, "Are the ancestors all present?" The disciple hurriedly nodded. "Grand Ancestor, the other ancestors are all waiting for you." "Then I'll be on my way," Su Zimo said, waving his hand as he stepped into the air. He. The examining disciples were all stunned. He's an ancestor? Some people had heard how the disciple addressed Su Zimo. "The Grand Ancestor was just joking with you earlier," the disciple said with a smile. "He is one of the oldest and most prestigious ancestors of our true martial sacred ground. Being able to see him is your honor. The ancestor is so young. What do you know? Once your cultivation reaches a certain level, appearance doesn't really matter." "That's true. Our ancestor is quite approachable." "That's nice." The crowd buzzed with discussion. Meanwhile, a certain young man running naked into the wind was also dumbfounded. "The ancestor tricked me." Cloud Prince's miserable howl echoed. Su Zimo returned to True Martial Mountain. At this moment, the True Martial Progenitor and the other Infinite Tao cultivators were all present. When Su Zimo arrived, Sandao was the first to laugh. "Let's welcome our newly advanced Infinite Tao powerhouse." Previously, Su Zimo had only been half a step into the Infinite Tao realm. Compared to those present, he was still half a step behind. Now that he had truly entered the Infinite Tao realm, and at that, the Absolute Annihilation Tao fruit, he naturally earned everyone's respect. One could even say that Su Zimo's status now surpassed that of many present. In cultivation, strength was the foundation, not age. This trip yielded quite a harvest, the True Martial Progenitor said with a smile. Su Zimo nodded slightly. "Very good. The great beyond is quite interesting." "What about the desolate tree?" the True Martial Progenitor asked. Su Zimo waved his hand and took out the desolate tree, smiling as he said, "I still need to return this thing. Don't damage it." "Don't worry. Once we break the formation, it will naturally be returned," the True Martial Progenitor replied. "The others have already come back. We were just waiting for you." "When do we set out?" Su Zimo asked. "Soon. The sect is recruiting disciples today, and I still need to make some arrangements," the True Martial Progenitor answered. Su Zimo nodded. He discussed various precautions with everyone, including how they should choose a location once they reached the upper heavens of the 9 heavens and what was known about that upper heavens. He learned many new things. The upper heavens, being a fusion of the remaining 4 heavens, was unimaginably vast. Moreover, the distribution of its forces was extremely complex. Even a power as strong as the Heavenly Court could not claim invincibility there. Therefore, once the true martial sacred ground arrived, it would need to act with restraint. After everyone else left, Su Zimo finally had time to speak alone with the true martial progenitor. "Go on," the true martial progenitor said. Su Zimo took out the golden bone from earlier and asked, "Take a look at this. What is it? Origin? Such a weak origin." The true martial progenitor was initially incredulous. After sensing it for a long time, he finally became certain. He nodded and said, "This is Origin. Where did you get it?" Su Zimo briefly recounted the matter of Miss Jing. The true martial progenitor frowned slightly. It seemed there were many mysteries in this world. "I've never heard of such an existence either. But to reach this level, it's likely not weaker than me." Su Zimo's heart tightened. There were truly many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in this world. Even existences like the true martial progenitor, who had once defied the heavens, were apparently not rare. He understood that the closer one came to the peak of the world, the more one could feel the vastness of heaven and earth. Ordinary people could never touch this level. No wonder people often said one should hold reverence for heaven and earth. Even those who defied the heavens had to remain cautious and reverent, as if walking on thin ice. What is origin? Su Zimo asked. This was his first time hearing the term. The origin of heaven and earth. It is connected to the most important power of the world. It is precisely because origin exists that this world exists, the true martial progenitor explained. I once learned about origin from the records of the Empress, but this is the first time I've seen a real one. Of course, the bone in your hand isn't a true origin. At most, it's something that has been tainted with the aura of origin. Just a trace of aura can allow someone to revive endlessly? Su Zimo said in shock. That's why origin is so powerful, the true martial progenitor replied. Even I don't fully understand origin. Perhaps once we reach the upper heavens, we'll learn more. Su Zimo nodded. Some questions could only be touched upon at higher levels. The true martial progenitor went off to make arrangements. With nothing else to do, Su Zimo decided to take a trip to the River of Time. Some matters might not yield direct answers, but perhaps he could still find some clues. There was also another matter. Regarding Lin Ruhu's River of Time, he had gone to the burial ground, and Su Zimo wanted to take a look. He did not want Lin Ruhu to re-emerge. Perhaps Lin Ruhu was one of the few friends he had in this world. Su Zimo sat cross-legged, his aura surging powerfully. He used the primordial chaos bead. He had not used the primordial chaos bead for a long time. At present, aside from traveling through the River of Time or suppressing certain things, he had not found any other use for it. At this moment, the primordial chaos bead opened the River of Time. He was searching for Lin Ruhu's thread of destiny. Unless a person's soul was completely annihilated, even if they died, their trace could still be found in the River of Fate. That was because within the 9 heavens, there was the Mirage Tides heaven. All the dead went there. Thus, the River of Fate always left traces. Of course, this only applied unless there was a truly ultimate attack that shattered life, death, and soul altogether, leaving no chance of reincarnation. Only in such cases would the River of Fate's record end there, proving that the person had completely vanished. Su Zimo searched for a long time. Among the countless living beings, finding one person's thread of destiny was difficult, almost impossible. Fortunately, Su Zimo had the primordial chaos bead to assist him, so time was not an issue. Finally, after wandering for a long while, Su Zimo found the thread that belonged to Lin Ruhu. However, this thread of destiny was very strange. It flickered in and out of existence. Sometimes it appeared, sometimes it vanished. This was the first time Su Zimo had encountered such a situation. He knew that Lin Ruhu must be experiencing something unusual. It seems I must go there and take a look, Su Zimo thought to himself. He withdrew from the River of Fate and cultivated for another night. Early the next morning, all the disciples of the true martial sacred ground were gathered together. Wang Hengji was still the sect master of the true martial sacred ground. He assembled all the disciples and announced a matter. Today, the true martial sacred ground would mobilize the entire sect and fly to the upper heavens of the 9 heavens. Everyone was filled with excitement. Although this was something they had known for a long time, the exact day of ascension had never been confirmed. For newly joined disciples in particular, the joy was even greater. They had just joined and were already ascending, feeling that their martial path ahead was bright and boundless. The crowd was buzzing. Wang Hengji raised his hand, signaling for silence, and said, "I'll say a few words. This is also the will of the ancestors. After entering the upper heavens, we must keep a low profile and not provoke trouble. Of course, if others provoke us, we cannot disgrace the name of the true martial sacred ground. Do you all understand? We obey the sect master's command." Countless disciples shouted in unison, fists clasped. Wang Hengji nodded with satisfaction. He liked the current atmosphere of the sect. Everyone striving forward, the sect flourishing. Perhaps this was also the ancestors' original vision. On the other side, at this moment, The true martial progenitor and all the infinite Tao and Saint sovereign ancestors were gathered on true Martial Mountain. In truth, everyone was somewhat excited. We have prepared for so long, all for the sake of breaking this primordial formation, the true martial progenitor said. Once we enter the upper world, there may be people waiting to ambush us. I think it's time to let those in the upper world see our strength. That's right. The first battle must be fought well. Otherwise, troubles will keep coming. The path of cultivation is, at its core, about contention. Once we go, there will surely be many who are unwilling to accept us. The crowd discussed animatedly. At this moment, the true martial progenitor raised his head to look at the heavens. Ordinary people could not see it, but everyone present could clearly see that the primordial formation had grown increasingly solid, sealing the entire firmament. It almost completely cut off any path leading to the upper heavens. Doing this was somewhat selfish. After all, within the 9 heavens, there were not only the true martial progenitor. There were many other powerful beings who also wished to see the upper heavens. It was said that this was the true 9 heavens: the Calamity Immortal Heaven, Grand Desolate Heaven, Mirage Tides, and Azure Mystic Heaven. For heavens merged into one. That world was truly brilliant and magnificent. Su Zimo looked up as well. He knew that breaking the primordial formation would not require him to act. The true martial progenitor alone would suffice. But once they entered the upper heavens, what awaited them would be the greatest challenge. The true martial progenitor needed to establish authority. Therefore, a major battle was inevitable. Without ruthlessness, one could not gain a foothold. Without establishing authority, anyone would dare to trample on the true martial progenitor. Of course, after establishing authority would come a period of quiet. The bird that sticks its head out gets shot. After all, the true martial progenitor still had the heavenly court as an enemy. The true martial progenitor stepped into the air. He did not unleash particularly explosive power, yet this power still twisted everything around it. Endless true martial power illuminated the absolute God heaven. At this moment he was even more radiant than the sun. The desolate tree, the earth-dark flower, and the heavenly thunder token floated around him. At this moment, the true martial progenitor raised his hand upward. With a boom, it was as if the entire sky had been lifted. Boom, boom. That great hand shattered the 9 heavens, directly hoisting the primordial formation and causing it to tremble violently. However, in the upper world, it seemed that someone was stationed within the formation, stabilizing it. The primordial formation transformed into a vast primordial river, surging and echoing across the firmament. Even the true martial progenitor's power was suppressed by the formation. But he was not anxious. The desolate tree took root in the void. Endless desolation edicts flowed into the true martial progenitor's hand. Boom! A pillar of desolation shot skyward, propping up the heavens. Next came the heavenly thunder token. The heavenly thunder token commanded countless bolts of lightning, as terrifying thunder roared without end. The entire sky was filled with surging lightning. As for the earth-dark flower, when it bloomed, innumerable earth-dark flowers spread across the entire firmament. At this moment, the 3 forces coiled around him. The primordial formation continued to surge violently. Just then, ripples suddenly appeared in the void. Boom, boom! Several figures suddenly burst forth. These figures had been hidden within the void. Now, at the critical moment when the true martial progenitor was breaking the formation, they launched their attack. "This is bad," Sandow roared from below. He tried to stop them, but it was already too late. Su Zimo, however, remained calm the entire time. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, these people were hiding in the void. Do you really think they could escape the ancestors' perception? What kind of existence was the true martial progenitor? How could such small fry possibly deceive him? If that were the case, how could he have ever defied the heavens?" Hearing Su Zimo's words, everyone looked up again. In the sky, shadows were already closing in from all directions. Their targets were clear. They went straight for the 3 treasures surrounding the desolate tree. They wanted to destroy these treasures. As for the true martial progenitor himself, they knew their limits. They were no match for him. These people were death warriors. They came purely to sabotage without regard for their lives. The true martial progenitor's expression remained calm. He merely waved his right hand in the void. "Freeze!" he said, uttering a single word. In that instant, the firmament solidified, and everything fell silent. Everyone was stunned. The shadows were frozen in place, unable to move, feeling as if the man before them was an unfathomable terror. With every word, he decided their life or death. Sure enough, after the word "freeze," the true martial progenitor uttered another word. D. Boom! All the black-robed figures exploded on their own. With a single word, life and death were frozen in place. This was the true power of the true martial progenitor. After all the black-clad figures were slain, the heavens once again fell silent. As for who was behind the scenes or what attitude they truly held, no one cared for the moment. Even the craftiest fox would eventually reveal its tail. This small interruption did not disrupt the true martial progenitor's pace in breaking the formation. Once the power of the desolate tree, the heavenly thunder token, and the earth-dark flower erupted simultaneously, the sky shook violently. Boom, boom. The terrifying force surged straight into the primordial formation. Of course, these powers merely countered the formation, forcing it to reveal its weakest point. The true key to breaking the formation still lay with the true martial progenitor himself. He had to engage in a contest of Tao with the one who had set the formation. Only by winning could the formation be shattered. At this moment, the true martial progenitor's Tao fruit manifested, and waves of true martial power surged endlessly. Boom! This heaven-shaking force tore open the firmament, blasting a hole straight through the heavens. Within that opening, a massive hand emerged. Suppress! The true martial progenitor snorted coldly. His three blossoms surged, and his power rose yet again. Then, with both hands propping up the sky, he hurled a fierce punch forward. This punch carried the might to shake the heavens. The giant hand within the opening in the sky froze briefly, then was completely destroyed by that single strike. Today, I go to the upper heavens. Who dares block my path? The true martial progenitor declared coldly. Before I defy the heavens, I don't mind slaughtering a few ancient clans or wiping out a few immortal sects. As his words fell, the weakest point of the formation was completely annihilated. Meanwhile, the desolate tree and the other two treasures used their immense power to force open a massive gate. This gate was the entrance to the upper heavens. Within it, boundless energies evolved and churned endlessly. Everyone knew that the primordial formation had been broken. There were no flashy battles, no prolonged clashes. With just a punch and a palm, the sealing formation was utterly destroyed. "Let us go," the true martial progenitor said. He waved his hand once more, and the entire true martial mountain was uprooted from the ground and sent soaring into the sky. All the disciples were already gathered on the mountain. This had been arranged long ago. Once the gate opened, there was no time to waste. At this moment, the true martial progenitor's divine body expanded countless times. With one hand supporting the mountain, he flew toward the upper heavens. This was yet another journey through time and space for Su Zimo. Although traveling from the absolute God heaven to the upper heavens seemed like crossing a single gate, the true distance was unimaginably vast. This time, however, with true Martial Mountain accompanying him, Su Zimo did not feel alone. Aside from cultivating in meditation, he spent his free time discussing cultivation with the other infinite Tao cultivators and sharing a few drinks. It was surprisingly relaxed. This journey through time and space lasted for more than 10 full days. On this day, the true martial progenitor seemed to sense something and gave an order. All disciples below the Saint Sovereign realm are to hide within true Martial Mountain. Saint Sovereigns guard the mountain. Everyone else, follow me and kill the enemy. Yes. The infinite Tao cultivators all nodded. They had no intention of staying behind to guard the mountain. That would be far too passive. Sure enough, Not long after the true martial progenitor finished speaking, half an hour later, a gate appeared in the distance. Everyone knew they were about to reach the true upper heavens. Boom! True Martial Mountain transformed into a streak of divine light, smashing through the gate, shattering the void, and appearing in a completely different world. What followed was an overwhelming surge of dense spirit energy, like a cleansing baptism from heaven and earth. Even Su Zimo could clearly feel it. The density and richness of the spirit energy here far surpassed that of any other world. This place truly deserved its title as the upper heavens. Cultivating in such a place, even an ordinary genius would rise quickly. Perhaps even a pig could attain enlightenment here. But there was no time to linger. The moment true Martial Mountain appeared, it was enveloped by thick white mist from all sides. Everyone's vision was completely obscured. From within the mist, more than a dozen figures stepped out. They were all dressed in black robes and wore white masks. Their masks were expressionless, cold, and impartial, like iron faces. People of the true martial sacred ground, you are not welcome here. Hearing this, Sandow immediately bristled. Whether we're welcome is for you to decide. The 9 heavens belong to all living beings, not to one person or a select few. The black-robed figures clearly had no interest in arguing and could not be bothered to say more. One of them spoke calmly. If your true martial sacred ground refuses to know what's good for you, then today we will unleash a massacre. A massacre? Go ahead and try. Someone inside True Martial Mountain said coldly. Activate the formation, one of the black-robed figures shouted. The dozen or so black-robed figures took up different positions. At that moment, a rune appeared beneath each of their feet. Between the runes, blood-red lines formed, connecting them together. All the black-robed figures shouted in unison. North Nether Profound Fiend Formation. As the shout echoed and fell, terrifying baleful energy exploded forth, flooding the void above and below. Space and time twisted. Killing intent emerged. This killing intent came from the profound fiend energy. This was no ordinary baleful force. In a single sentence, it could be described as this. A saint sovereign would die upon contact. Even an infinite Tao cultivator would be gravely injured. However, the price of setting up such a formation was enormous, something ordinary people could never afford. It was clear that these people had gone nearly mad in their determination to ambush the true martial sacred ground. From another perspective, however, their black robes and white masks showed their fear. They did not dare reveal their true identities. They were afraid the true martial progenitor would seek retribution afterward. Watching the formation operate, the true martial progenitor knew that if he did not break it now, he himself would be fine. But the disciples inside True Martial Mountain would suffer. He snorted coldly. It seems many people still don't take me seriously. Mark my words. Today, my true martial sacred ground descends upon these upper heavens. You will all remember my name. This is the era of true martial. I will not allow anyone who defies me to exist. As his words fell, the power of the 3 selves surged into his body. With a single hand, he forcibly tore the terrifying North Nether Profound Fiend Formation apart. How can this be? The dozen black-robed figures were shocked. They knew how powerful the true martial progenitor was and had prepared accordingly. Yet, at the critical moment, they realized they had still underestimated him. A bunch of rats, daring to ambush me, the true martial progenitor snorted coldly. In his 3-self state, he was truly invincible. Even a holy progenitor would not frighten him. What fear was there in attacking the heavenly court? At this moment, with a casual wave of his hand, the masks of all the black-robed figures shattered. The masks shattered. The dozen or so black-robed figures were all startled. Damn it! This guy is really hard to deal with. So it's just you bunch of rats. I was wondering who it might be, the true martial progenitor said, sweeping his gaze over them one by one. You and the forces behind you will remember all of you. Today we will kill you and wipe out your sections. Let this serve as a sacrifice to the might of my true martial sacred ground. With a wave of his hand, the true martial progenitor froze the entire sky. The faces of the black-robed figures changed drastically. With their level of strength, they found they could not even tear open the void to escape. What's going on? This man's strength far exceeds our expectations. Invite the ancestral weapon, one of them said. His name was Vast Ocean Tao Lord. His true strength had long since stepped into the infinite Tao realm. In fact, nearly all of the black-robed figures involved in this ambush were infinite Tao cultivators. Saint sovereigns were not even qualified to be here. Hearing Vast Ocean Tao Lord's words, the other cultivators nodded in agreement. At that moment, powerful forces surged around several of them. Boom, boom. These forces converged, and at the center of the sky, a bow and arrow appeared. This was not an ordinary bow like those people were used to seeing. It was entirely purple-black, radiating a terrifying murderous aura. To touch it was to die. Anyone who looked at it could instinctively sense that this was a weapon of calamity. The blissful massacre primordial bow. The true martial progenitor's gaze sharpened. A world-suppressing god-fiend weapon. You've even brought this thing out. This bow was infamous. In the upper heavens, there had long been rumors of 10 grand god-fiend weapons. Each one possessed the power to destroy heaven and earth. The origin of the blissful massacre primordial bow was especially cruel. It was said that long ago, a man, in order to forge a god-fiend weapon, refined his own younger brother into a blade. Unfortunately, the brother's god soul did not perish. It hid within the blade, slowly growing stronger. When the time was ripe, he killed that man. Still unwilling to let things end, the younger brother used the man's spine as the base of the bow, piecing together several bones into its shape. He twisted the man's tendons and skin into a bowstring, and forged arrows from his ribs. The moment the blissful massacre primordial bow was born, its murderous aura swept across the world. Within 1 billion miles, all living beings were drained dry and died. And that was only the beginning. Later, someone wielded this bow and slaughtered countless people. The bow seemed to embody misfortune itself. Anyone who came into contact with it lost their sanity and became a mere tool of slaughter. Over millions of years, the bow killed innumerable people and eventually grew into a true god-fiend weapon. In the end, it was sealed away by the vast ocean Tao domain. Now that the blissful massacre primordial bow had reappeared, it would not rest without drinking blood. At this moment, as the blissful massacre primordial bow emerged, endless black energy gathered around it. Boom! An arrow shattered the void and shot straight toward the true martial progenitor. The true martial progenitor frowned slightly. That black arrow carried the intent of banishment. It did not seek to kill him, but to exile him instead. They all knew that even a god-fiend weapon could not kill the present true martial progenitor. Only by banishing him could they then slaughter the rest of the true martial sacred ground. The void around the true martial progenitor seemed to freeze. In the next instant, a massive black hole appeared and swallowed him whole. Immediately after, the blissful massacre primordial bow gathered its power once more. The jet-black arrow turned its tip toward the entire true martial mountain. Boom! With overwhelming force, the arrow shot out unstoppable. Careful! Sandao was the first to step forward. His 3 blades stretched across the void, blocking the arrow head-on. Boom! All 3 blades were blasted away. Yet the arrow did not slow in the slightest and tore through the void once more. The radiant progenitor also stepped forward. The radiant wheel in his hand transformed into a streak of light, wrapping around the black arrow in an attempt to weaken its power. Still, it was pierced straight through.
Sujimos nok gonli.
At this point, the black arrow was already extremely weakened. He raised Shadow Tyrant and shattered the arrow completely. Seeing this, Vast Ocean Tao Lord was not anxious. Instead, he said calmly, "You may be able to block 1 arrow, but let's see how many you can block." The blissful massacre primordial bow gathered power again. Another arrow took shape. Just as the black arrow was about to destroy everything, a giant hand suddenly appeared. It grabbed the blissful massacre primordial bow directly. "How are you still here?" Vast Ocean Tao Lord exclaimed in shock. The one holding the blissful massacre primordial bow was none other than the true martial progenitor. A weapon may be strong, but you are weak as ants, the true martial progenitor said calmly. He waved his right hand. It was as if something in heaven and earth responded to his call. In an instant, a heavenly thunderbolt descended. Thunder roared, and the might of heaven surged. From billions of miles away, a long spear tore through space, shattering everything in its path. It appeared in the true martial progenitor's hand. The weapon that defied the heavens. The true martial progenitor said softly, looking at the spear. I also have weapons. I just disdain using them on you. With that, he swept the spear sideways. In an instant, the blissful massacre primordial bow's momentum weakened. The black arrow being formed dissipated completely. The spear tip lifted slightly. Boom! The figures of Vast Ocean Tao Lord and the others were all suppressed in place. Everyone was stunned. In just 2 spear movements, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. But the true martial progenitor's true target was not Vast Ocean Tao Lord and the others. He pointed his spear toward the heavens and said calmly, Heavenly Court, I know you're lurking in the shadows. You're nothing but a group of cowardly turtles hiding their heads. If you want to fight, then come out. I don't mind starting the heaven-defying war ahead of schedule. After he spoke, the sky fell silent for a moment. Then, something seemed to vanish from the firmament. The true martial progenitor knew that the people of the heavenly court had retreated. Only then did he turn his gaze back to Vast Ocean Tao Lord. What do you intend to do? The Tao Lord asked in fear. From now on, investigate the forces behind these people. Go to them one by one and wipe them out. The true martial progenitor said. No, please. We were misled by others. Vast Ocean Tao Lord hurriedly explained. We're willing to ally ourselves with the true martial progenitor. We beg you to give us a chance. The true martial progenitor raised his head. En alliance? You aren't even fit to be our slaves. Do you know why? Loyalty. With those words, he waved his hand again. The spear in his hand pierced through everything. The dozen Tao Lords were skewered one by one, like gourds on a string, frozen in the void. Take them with you and let them watch as their sects are destroyed, one by one, the true martial progenitor said calmly. At this moment, the people of the true martial sacred ground carried that spear with them. The first destination they chose was naturally the vast ocean Tao domain of the vast ocean Tao Lord. The vast ocean Tao domain was located in the eastern part of the upper heavens. They occupied a vast near-infinite expanse of fine rivers and mountains. At the center of this territory lay a place with pleasant scenery and dense spirit energy. The vast ocean Tao domain was built precisely there. Today happened to be the day when the vast ocean Tao domain was recruiting new disciples. In front of the sect, the scene was bustling and lively. Trillions of prospective disciples formed countless long lines. So this is the vast ocean Tao domain, several disciples said with smiles as they waited for the assessment. What a huge place. It's so much bigger than our martial spirit valley. Isn't it? A young man named Zhang Meng replied with a grin. In the eastern lands, the vast ocean Tao domain rules over everything. That's right. As long as we become disciples of the vast ocean Tao domain, we'll be able to walk sideways wherever we go. The crowd chatted animatedly. Among these disciples stood a woman of breathtaking beauty. She was anything but ordinary. Her eyes were soft and captivating, as if she were born to bring calamity to others. Fair-skinned, long-legged, and graceful with golden hair. Her nose bridge was high with a hint of the exotic features. She wore a pure white long dress. At the same time, she radiated an ethereal, almost immortal aura. Hovering between elegance and allure, her charm was irresistible. The surrounding disciples frequently cast glances her way. Some bolder ones even tried to strike up a conversation. However, though the woman was polite, she maintained a clear sense of distance. In the end, most could only give up. Stand properly in line. Anyone who dares cause trouble will have their qualifications revoked immediately. A vast ocean Dao domain disciple strode past arrogantly, looking down on the newcomers as he spoke. To enter our vast ocean Dao domain, you must first learn your first lesson. Respect your senior brothers. The disciple lectured at length. Within the line, the blonde woman frowned slightly. The vast ocean Dao domain gave her a rather unpleasant feeling. Inger, the woman said to another woman beside her. Why do the disciples of the vast ocean Dao domain seem so smug and petty? My young miss, you mustn't say such things, the maid named Inger said hurriedly. I already risked my life bringing you out to cultivate. That alone is a capital offense. If the master finds out, he won't let me off. If we offend the vast ocean Dao domain as well, we'll truly be finished. The woman was named Meng Lily. She smiled and quickly replied, all right, I won't say anything. Just then, everyone suddenly noticed that something was blocking the sunlight overhead. Their vision darkened. Many people looked up and saw a massive mountain appearing above them. What is that? It looks like a mountain. Nonsense, of course it's a mountain. But why would a mountain suddenly appear out of nowhere? The crowd broke into discussion. At that moment, a vast and majestic voice descended from the heavens like the voice of a god, carrying overwhelming heavenly might. People of the vast ocean Dao domain, listen well, because your founding ancestor, the vast ocean Dao Lord, offended us. We have come today to annihilate your sect. Remember this clearly. Your destroyer is the true martial sacred ground. The words were like heavenly thunder, sending ripples across the sky and scattering clouds in all directions. The sound spread boundlessly, reaching the very edge of the heavens. On true martial mountain, Su Zimo had been tasked with destroying the sect. To Su Zimo, now that the vast ocean Dao Lord was gone, the vast ocean Dao domain posed little obstacle. The others from true martial mountain merely stood by to provide support. As the voice faded away, panic spread throughout the vast ocean Dao domain. The vast ocean Dao domain's domain lord, Sky Demon Sovereign, immediately issued orders. Hurry, activate the Guardian formation. I'll summon the ancestors. After all, besides the vast ocean Dao Lord, the vast ocean Dao domain still had other ancestors. Though none were as powerful as the vast ocean Dao Lord, at a time like this, they needed someone to steady the situation. The Guardian formation was activated. The entire vast ocean Dao domain was enveloped within it. However, the prospective disciples gathered below the sect were left outside the formation. This caused many of them to grow anxious. Do you think we'll be dragged into this and wiped out as well? Probably not. We haven't even joined the vast ocean Dao domain yet. Some even felt relieved. Good thing we didn't join the vast ocean Dao domain. Otherwise, we'd definitely be dead. What kind of force dares to wipe out the vast ocean Dao domain? The vast ocean Dao domain is the strongest power in the eastern regions of the upper heavens. Who would dare come knocking on their door like this? Didn't you hear? Even the vast ocean Dao Lord has been taken out. What would they have to fear? Among the crowd, the maid Inger looked frightened. She said to Meng Lily, Miss, let's leave quickly. A fight is about to break out. Why leave? It's more interesting if they fight. Meng Lily waved her hand dismissively. At this moment, Su Zimo stepped into the air. He looked at the vast ocean Dao domain's Guardian formation. Such a formation might be troublesome for others, but to him it could be broken with a casual move. Su Zimo raised his hand. Above the heavens, spirit energy surged like a whale swallowing the sea, gathering into a massive hand billions of miles wide that blotted out the sky. As the giant hand descended, it seemed capable of destroying heaven and earth. Boom, boom. The formation was instantly shattered. The entire region where the vast ocean Dao domain stood was shaken. Domain Lord Sky Demon Sovereign stepped forward and hurriedly asked, May I ask which matters caused our vast ocean Dao domain to offend you? Senior, please show mercy. I've already made it clear. I'm here to destroy the sect. Su Zimo replied calmly. He could not be bothered with further talk. He reached out with one hand and suppressed Sky Demon Sovereign directly. That massive hand carried overwhelming spirit power, suppressing everything. Sky Demon Sovereign was horrified to discover that he could not move at all. Just as the hand was about to obliterate everything, several aged voices echoed from within the vast ocean Dao domain. "Young man, leave room for mercy where mercy is due." 5 elderly figures rose into the air, thunder rolling around their bodies. They were the last 5 surviving ancestors of the vast ocean Dao domain. Among them, one was an infinite Dao powerhouse. The other 4 were all sage monarchs, peak of Saint Sovereign Realm. All 5 wore grim expressions. They had just gone to search for the vast ocean Dao Lord and discovered that their founding ancestor had truly vanished. Recalling what the other side had said, they were both shocked and terrified. "What did you do to our ancestor?" one of the elders asked. "You want to know?"
Su Yimosna.
He waved his hand. That spear descended from the heavens. The vast ocean Dao Lord and the others were skewered together, unable to move. "Ancestor!" the elders cried out in shock. "Enough! Your ancestor will accompany you." "Don't worry," Suzimo said calmly. "Release our ancestor." The 5 elders roared in unison. "Kill!" The 5 elders unleashed surging power. Their names were all taken from the sun, moon, stars, and celestial light. At this moment, thunder roared around the desolate moon sage monarch. All 5 cultivated the same technique. It was not only the same cultivation technique. The 5 of them had also comprehended the exact same edict. This edict was the primordial edict of sun, moon, and stars. The 5 could be considered exceptionally gifted geniuses. They had actually fused the powers of the sun, moon, and stars into a perfect whole. With a rumbling boom, desolate moon sage monarch's edicts surged forth, and terrifying power shattered heaven and earth. He waved his hand. That massive round moon illuminated the sky and suppressed down toward Suzimo. "Get lost!"
Su Yimo sao tek côn ly.
He threw a punch straight out, smashing the moon to pieces. A devouring black hole appeared in the void. The expressions of the 5 ancestors darkened. Among them, the strongest was Golden Sun Dao Lord, the infinite Dao cultivator. His entire body burst forth with radiant light. Like the sun itself, he illuminated the entire sky. "The rising sun in the east, I am the brilliance of heaven." He extended his hand, which seemed to stretch tens of billions of miles. Pressed straight down toward Suzimo. "You're still not strong enough," Suzimo said in a low voice. He answered with a punch of his own. Whether desolate moon sage monarch or golden sun Dao Lord, to him there was no difference. Both were ants, one just slightly bigger than the other. Between fist and palm, even the sun itself seemed to shatter. Amid the blinding light, Suzimo's punch split the heavens. That punch landed squarely on Golden Sun Dao Lord's face. With a loud boom, Golden Sun Dao Lord's head was smashed apart. But in the next instant, his body recovered. The regenerative power of an infinite Dao cultivator was already strong enough. The 5 ancestors advanced together, stepping across the heavens. They surrounded Suzimo. At that moment, the 5 seemed to form a certain formation. A special formation seal appeared, enclosing Suzimo within it. Sun Moon Heaven Earth Slaughter Formation. A very simple name for a formation, yet its power was terrifying. The heavens rumbled endlessly. This formation destroyed everything, actually absorbing the power of the sun, moon, and stars. It perfectly fused all 3 into the formation. This was the 5 men's final trump card. In truth, long ago, after their strength reached its current level, it had become extremely difficult for them to improve any further. For example, going from peak Saint Sovereign to infinite Dao cultivator was just a single threshold. But that threshold could consume countless years of effort, something one might never cross in an entire lifetime. They knew their potential had already reached its limit, so they began seeking other ways to increase their strength. The first was formations. The 5 of them created this formation themselves. When used together, they believed its power could trap, or even kill, any infinite Tao cultivator. This was not a simple 1 + 1 = 2. It was an enhancement of several times, even dozens of times. Unfortunately, they had chosen the wrong opponent. Su Zimo was an invincible infinite Tao. At this moment, his primordial edict of absolute annihilation wrapped itself around the blade's edge. He dragged the long saber forward. The void shattered. Everything seemed to face destruction. Su Zimo slashed out. With a thunderous boom, the void collapsed. The formation was torn open with a gaping crack. "How is this possible?" the five shouted in shock. They hurried to repair the formation. Su Zimo slashed again. The primordial edict of absolute annihilation seemed capable of annihilating everything. This time, an even larger hole opened in the formation. The five were already scrambling in panic. The cracks kept expanding. Finally, under Su Zimo's successive strikes, the formation could no longer hold and completely shattered. "Run!" The instant the formation collapsed, the five reached a mutual understanding. They could not fight him. They were no match. At times like this, retreat was the best strategy. But Su Zimo did not give them the chance to escape. One slash split the heavens. This single strike severed the heads of 4 of the 5 ancestors. The remaining one, Golden Sun Tao Lord, survived only because he was the strongest, already at the infinite Tao realm. He narrowly escaped death. "Another one!" Su Zimo shouted. He directly hurled the Shadow Tyrant saber from his hand. The long blade transformed into an endless saber aura. It was as if it cut a fissure straight through the sky. The skies thundered violently. At last, an insurmountable chasm appeared between heaven and earth. The Shadow Tyrant fell, striking Golden Sun Tao Lord squarely in the chest. Churned his heart. At the same time, the primordial edict of absolute annihilation twisted and destroyed everything he had, including his soul and yin-yang spirits. With a loud explosion, his entire body burst apart, flesh and blood flying everywhere. As for the disciples and higher-ups of Vast Ocean Tao Domain, seeing this scene made it feel as though the sky itself had collapsed. "Am I dreaming? The ancestors, all the ancestors are dead. How is this possible? What kind of terrifying enemy did we provoke?" Voices of panic rang out everywhere. At this moment, some quick-witted people shouted, "What are you still standing around for? Run! The ancestors are dead. We're next." The entire Vast Ocean Tao Domain fell into chaos. Su Zimo stepped through the air and stood in the heavens. He sneered, "You think you can run? Under this sky, is there anywhere I cannot see?" He extended his hand. With a loud boom, all the spirit energy for billions of miles surged toward him. The heavens rumbled again and again. As the spirit energy destabilized, the beautiful mountains and rivers of Vast Ocean Tao Domain began to collapse. The spirit energy in Su Zimo's hand kept increasing. In the end, it formed into a massive dragon millions of miles long. This was no ordinary dragon. A spirit energy dragon represented the very will of this land. It roared furiously. It even tried to destroy the very ground beneath it. The earth split open with countless cracks. The thunderous roars continued. The cracks widened, deep pits appearing everywhere. Many disciples could not escape and were buried alive by the collapsing ground. The entire Vast Ocean Tao Domain was engulfed in a storm of destruction. Outside the sect, the disciples who had narrowly avoided disaster by not entering to participate in the competition all felt immense relief. "Good thing we didn't go in. Otherwise, we'd definitely be dead. I'm just curious. What kind of force is this to wipe out Vast Ocean Tao Domain so completely?" Among the crowd, the stunningly beautiful young woman stared up at the true Martial Mountain in the sky, and at Su Zimo's figure standing in the heavens. Her gaze was full of longing, as if she wanted to carve every detail into her memory. "Miss," the maid named Inger said anxiously beside her, "the outside world is too dangerous. Let's go home quickly. With the master there, he's enough to protect us for a lifetime of peace." "I'm not going back," the woman Meng Lily said stubbornly. "I want to cultivate. But Vast Ocean Tao Domain has already been destroyed. Where are we supposed to learn now? Inger said helplessly. Meng Lily puffed out her cheeks and pointed toward True Martial Mountain in the sky. What do you think about that place? As the spirit energy dragon roared, and as Su Zimo continued to increase his power, this land finally could no longer bear it and fell completely into ruin. The earth became a vast grave. Everyone was buried within it. This was the founding land of Vast Ocean Dao Domain, and it also became their burial ground. Many were born here and many died here. The turmoil surrounding Vast Ocean Dao Domain finally came to an end. As True Martial Mountain retreated into the void and moved on toward its next destination of sect destruction, the land where Vast Ocean Dao Domain once stood gradually returned to silence. When people later came back to this place, all they felt was shock at the sight before them. It's ruined. Everything is destroyed. This entire land is finished. Not just Vast Ocean Dao Domain. In the future, it'll be almost impossible to establish another sect on this land. Many people sighed in amazement, but were also deeply frightened. It seemed that within the upper heavens, an extremely powerful new force had emerged once again. Some of the stronger factions began mobilizing all their resources to investigate the background of True Martial Sacred Ground. At this moment on True Martial Mountain, as one powerful orthodoxy and sacred sect after another was annihilated, the entire upper heavens seemed to tremble. Yet the process left Su Zimo somewhat surprised. Among all the forces that ambushed True Martial Sacred Ground, not a single one belonged to the Myriad Immortal Nation. He remembered that earlier, he had clashed with the Saintess of the Myriad Immortal Nation, Miao Ruyan. He had even nearly killed her. Originally, he thought that under such circumstances, the Myriad Immortal Nation would very likely join the ambush. Unexpectedly, all the attackers were unfamiliar forces. These factions were most likely incited by the Heavenly Court. Killing them was essentially the same as cutting off the Heavenly Court's claws. Finally, after a series of sect annihilations, most of the ambushing forces had been dealt with. On this day, everyone arrived at the final target for destruction. The Shattered Demon Sea. This was an extremely mysterious place. It was said that a great demon had once fallen here. That demon's unwilling roars and blood had tainted this sea region. In the end, the originally pure seawater turned pitch black, becoming a demon sea. This place was then renamed the Shattered Demon Sea. This land itself was unfathomable and mysterious. Ordinary beings who came into contact with this seawater would likely be completely demonized. That was because the sea possessed the power to seduce and corrupt. As a result, most people stayed far away from it. Those who lived within this sea region were either demonic creatures already accustomed to corruption, or powerful cultivators who sealed off small portions of the demon sea with supreme divine weapons and established their sects there. The demon sea was hell. But once you became accustomed to it, you would realize it was also paradise. Paradise for cultivators. Whether it was for tempering the body or absorbing the demonic energy contained within, the demon water was a fatal temptation for cultivators. Thus, among the group that ambushed True Martial Sacred Ground, there was a Treasure Buddha Demon Venerable. His Treasure Buddha Demon Court was established here. It was said that long ago, Treasure Buddha Demon Venerable had been a monk. He was an ascetic monk. He traveled the world, seeing through worldly desires. Later, he came to the Shattered Demon Sea. At the time, everyone believed this was a cursed land, a place of countless deaths where one would die upon contact. Only Treasure Buddha Demon Venerable did not believe it. He attempted to rely on his own strength to convert the Shattered Demon Sea. Unfortunately, he ultimately failed. The resentment within the Shattered Demon Sea was overwhelming, its killing intent vast and boundless. It was simply impossible to convert. Even Treasure Buddha Demon Venerable himself was tainted by demonic energy. However, though he failed, he gained certain benefits from it. He discovered the wondrous uses of the demon water. To others, it was an extremely sinister substance, but to beings capable of absorbing demonic energy, it was an immense blessed land. Thus, he cultivated within the Shattered Demon Sea for countless years, eventually reaching his current infinite Tao realm and achievements. Not only that, He also established Treasure Buddha Demon Court here. In a very short time, the entire sect flourished and became a force in the upper heavens that could not be ignored. Thus, this place became the final destination for the destruction carried out by True Martial Sacred Ground. When the massive True Martial Mountain came to a halt above the shattered Demon Sea, one could see that the sea stretched for tens of billions of miles, boundless and endless. Sunlight could not penetrate it. Even the strongest flames could not evaporate it, and even other bodies of water could not assimilate with it. In short, the shattered Demon Sea was impervious to everything. The entire sea was a deep, dark hue. Upon closer inspection, one would see demonic energy billowing across the surface. On True Martial Mountain, Su Zimo frowned slightly. He turned to look at Radiant Progenitor beside him. "Do you hear a sound?" he asked. "What sound?" the Radiant Progenitor asked in confusion. "Is it an unwilling roar?" Su Zimo murmured to himself. He heard it, and the closer they drew to the shattered Demon Sea, the louder and clearer the sound became. But strangely, he asked several people in succession, and none of them heard anything at all. That shouldn't have been possible. Couldn't simply be that his hearing was better. Of course, there was another explanation. The shattered Demon Sea might be connected to him in some way. Because as Su Zimo sensed the demonic energy here, he could tell it was pure demonic energy, the kind that only true demons possessed. Ordinary cultivation of demonic techniques could never produce something this pure. "What connection does the shattered Demon Sea have with the ancient demon race?" he murmured. For now, however, the main target was still Treasure Buddha Demon Court. Treasure Buddha Demon Court was located on the eastern edge of the shattered Demon Sea. They were not the rulers of this sea region. They merely lived in one corner of it. After all, within the sea lived prehistoric giant crocodilian creatures, as well as pitch-black, indescribable beings. These were all mysterious lifeforms native to the shattered Demon Sea. For Treasure Buddha Demon Court to rule or occupy the sea was simply impossible. "Where is the master of Treasure Buddha Demon Court?" Sandao shouted coldly. This time, the task of annihilating the sect had been entrusted to him. His voice was like waves of divine saber force, seemingly condensed into substance. As his voice fell, rumbling explosions echoed. The entire Treasure Buddha Demon Court erupted. From within the Demon Mountain, a middle-aged man dressed in black robes, with demonic energy surging around him, stepped into the air. Although the demonic energy around him was pitch black, Su Zimo could sense that it was not pure. Simply put, he was not a demon. He was someone who cultivated demonic techniques and absorbed the power of the shattered Demon Sea to reach his current state. "Senior's arrival is the honor of my Treasure Buddha Demon Court. I am the governor of Treasure Buddha," the middle-aged man said with a smile. "My failure to welcome you personally is my fault. I offer my apologies to Senior here. Save it. We're here to destroy your sect," Sandao said. "When you reach the netherworld, remember to tell others. The one who killed you is named Sandao." Hearing this, the Treasure Buddha governor sighed. "Heaven cherishes life. I hope Senior can show mercy just this once. Our founding ancestor overestimated himself. Going to ambush Senior was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, an act of sheer folly. I believe that Senior and the power behind Senior have come to the upper heavens as an unstoppable tide. No one can stand in your way. The others of my Treasure Buddha Demon Court are innocent. I hope Senior can see this clearly." It had to be said that the Treasure Buddha governor's attitude was very good. At least among all the sects being annihilated, he was the most reasonable one. He did not beg, nor did he act arrogant or show any other misplaced emotion. After hearing the words of the Treasure Buddha governor, Sandao let out a cold snort. "Innocent? Who in this world is truly innocent?" When Treasure Buddha Demon Venerable was at his peak, you all benefited from his grace. Now that he has met disaster, you naturally must bear responsibility together with him. In this world, how can anyone enjoy benefits without paying a price? Hearing this, the expression of the Treasure Buddha governor changed slightly. He sighed softly. "If that's the case, Then we'll stake our lives to accompany you. We can't just wait for death. He did not wish to become enemies with true martial sacred ground. But ever since Treasure Buddha Demon Venerable took part in the ambush, everything had already been decided. There was no escaping it. In the end, it had to be faced. If we are to die, then we'll die in battle. As the Treasure Buddha governor's voice fell, the Treasure Buddha demon court beneath them began to tremble. Reflections layered upon reflections across the demon mountain. With a loud boom, it was as if a world was evolving within the mountain. The mountain suddenly lifted into the air and crashed toward Sandao. Slash, Sandao said calmly. 3 blades coiled around his body. The first blade shattered the void and slashed viciously toward Treasure Buddha Demon Court. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The Treasure Buddha Demon Court was split cleanly in half. Sandao had no intention of stopping. The remaining 2 blades also soared into the air. The 3 blades crossed within the void. They began to continuously slash down at Treasure Buddha Demon Court. Thunderous explosions rang out. Before long, the entire Treasure Buddha Demon Court was reduced to rubble. The Treasure Buddha governor led a group of elders, stepping out of the ruins and into the air. Buddha Mountain Seal. The Treasure Buddha governor burned his essence blood. At this moment, his expression was solemn. Above the shattered demon sea, endless Buddhist light spread out and enveloped everything. Ancient Buddha of burning lamp, scorch the heavens and boil the seas. Within the boundless Buddhist radiance, a Buddhist lamp slowly ignited. From within the lamp, flames surged endlessly. In an instant, even the shattered demon sea began to burn. Long ago, Treasure Buddha Demon Venerable had cultivated Buddhist teachings. This Buddhist method came from the ancient Buddha of burning lamp. He had once stolen the burning lamp, become an ascetic monk, and later entered the shattered demon sea. From that moment on, he never used the Buddhist lamp again. When the burning lamp ignited now, it immediately surrounded Sandao from all sides. The flames were terrifyingly powerful. Even the 3 blades of Sandao could not sever the burning lamp flames. Sandao snorted coldly. He waved both hands, and the 3 blades instantly fused into one. They condensed into a single soul blade. Heaven and earth, all things nowhere to hide. I slash all things within the formless. With a thunderous boom, the soul blade slashed out. The flames could not stop it. After shattering everything in its path, the blade passed straight through the fire and struck the burning lamp itself. A violent explosion rang out. The burning lamp was extinguished and shattered. This is bad. The Treasure Buddha governor's face changed drastically. That had been their final trump card. Governor, run! An elder shouted. Run where? The Treasure Buddha governor replied in despair. There is no road to heaven, no door to the earth. Everyone fell silent. At that moment, an elder suddenly said, Governor, do you remember that demon corpse? Demon corpse. The Treasure Buddha governor froze for a moment. As if recalling something, he shook his head. That won't do. The founding ancestor once said it was an object of great calamity and warned us not to provoke it. But Governor, this is a matter of life and death now. We can't care about that anymore, an elder replied. And we once tried to refine that demon corpse into a puppet. It might be useful. Voices rose in discussion, all persuading him. The Treasure Buddha governor's expression flickered between light and dark as hesitation filled his face. At this moment, the soul blade descended, and everything continued to shatter. Within Treasure Buddha Demon Court, countless disciples were cut down. Then let's try it, he said with a sigh. The Treasure Buddha governor took out a command token. Spatial edicts seemed to ripple within it. The instant the token was crushed, the entire shattered demon sea began to ripple. Thunderous rumbles echoed. Countless bubbles rose from the sea's surface, as if something was about to emerge.
Yin-yang guiding art.
Thin threads began to spread from the Treasure Buddha governor's hands. There were at least tens of millions of them. Within the shattered demon sea, a massive body gradually surfaced. The moment this body appeared, amid violent surges of demonic energy, the entire shattered demon sea seemed to erupt. The sea surface, which had long been calm, began to churn. Waves crashed endlessly. Within those waves, inside the shattered demon sea, the enormous figure overshadowed everything. The body was at least hundreds of thousands of meters tall, pitch black from head to toe. The demonic energy covering it was so dense it seemed unfathomable. The thin threads from the treasure Buddha governor's hands slowly extended. They wrapped around various parts of the demon corpse. Its arms, legs, and head were all bound. Under the treasure Buddha governor's guidance, the entire demon corpse slowly stood up. The pressure it exuded was immense. As it rose, the entire shattered demon sea roiled violently. The demon corpse's eyes remained tightly shut. It seemed to be in a perpetual state of slumber. The demon corpse slammed down with a single palm. With a thunderous boom, Sandao was forced to retreat. The entire shattered demon sea was lifted into the air. "What a powerful existence," Sandao said gravely. Even as an infinite Tao cultivator, he could clearly feel how terrifying the demon corpse was. Moreover, this demon corpse could not even move freely. It was only being passively controlled. Sandao's expression was solemn, sharp saber force bursting from his eyes. "Let me handle this," Su Zimo's voice suddenly sounded from beside him. Sandao was taken aback. "This demon corpse has some connection to me," Su Zimo explained. Sandao thought for a moment, then nodded. Su Zimo looked at the demon corpse. Demonic energy also surged around his body. Within the vast sea of demonic energy, he faintly seemed to merge with the shattered demon sea itself. The demon corpse began walking towards Su Zimo step by step. Su Zimo did not dodge. There was deep thought and recollection in his eyes. After inheriting the memories of the previous Infernal Lord and questioning Paimon and the others, he had finally confirmed certain things. "Lin, I'm back." His voice was low. Under its control, the demon corpse raised a palm and slapped towards Su Zimo. Just as the demonic palm came within a single centimeter of Su Zimo, it suddenly stopped. The demon corpse seemed to sense something. It began to struggle against the control of the threads. Roars erupted, as if it were about to awaken. As the threads snapped one by one, explosions rang out. The treasure Buddha governor was blasted away, sent flying backward. At that moment, the demon corpse's eyes snapped open. In an instant, the entire shattered demon sea shook violently. Towering demonic energy surged straight into the heavens. "Master, you've come." At this moment, above the shattered demon sea, only two figures remained: Su Zimo and the demon corpse. Su Zimo appeared small, while the demon corpse was incomparably massive, forming a stark contrast. Su Zimo let out a sigh. He knew the identity of this demon corpse. Perhaps no one was more familiar with it than he was. Among the demon race, aside from the infernal archons, there were actually 4 infernal guardians. One of those 4 guardians was Lin. The status of a guardian was even higher than that of an infernal archon. This was because the weakest among the infernal guardians already began at the infinite Tao realm. Among them were even existences at the Three Blossoms realm. "Why did you end up like this?"
Su Zimo sighed.
Within the shattered demon sea, that black seawater was not something else. It was ancient demon blood. That's right. Lin's black blood had dyed this entire sea, and even after countless ages, it still had not dissipated. "I was sleeping, waiting for the day when the demons would descend again," Lin said seriously. As he opened his mouth, in an instant, the shattered demon sea began to churn. Countless waves rolled violently, thunderous sounds echoing without end. To everyone's horror, they discovered that all of the seawater was being swallowed by Lin. With roaring splashes, an immeasurable sea spanning tens of billions of miles, boundless and endless, was swallowed just like that, as if into a bottomless pit. Of course, this required some time, but the demon corpse seemed never to feel full. The black demon sea was continuously absorbed. The seawater stirred up the winds and clouds across the sky. Whether it was prehistoric creatures or floating islands, all of them were dragged down and submerged. Run! On the side of Treasure Buddha Demon Court, many people began struggling in panic. Unfortunately, no matter who they were all swallowed by the surging seawater. Once touched by the demon sea, one would be melted away, leaving not even bones or flesh behind. All the power within the body would be completely devoured. Treasure Buddha Demon Court had been established on the shattered demon sea for a very long time. They thought they could absorb the demon sea's power to cultivate. In the end, they had merely been making wedding clothes for another. Their bones ceased to exist. Along with their lives, everything was returned to the demon corpse. As everyone struggled and the shattered demon sea visibly shrank before their eyes, all could clearly feel it. The aura on Lin's body was growing stronger and stronger. It even felt as if he were coming back to life. Because prior to this, he had merely been a corpse, truly nothing more than a dead body. What kind of divine ability is this? Sandao said in shock. To allow a corpse that has been dead for countless ages to revive again? Stealing heaven and replacing the sun. The true martial progenitor said with interest from atop true martial mountain. Of course, this was merely curiosity on his part. He was not truly interested. Although this method could indeed grant longevity, by entrusting one's blood to heaven and earth, emptying the flesh and putting the soul into slumber, it could greatly reduce the consumption of life force. But the true martial progenitor did not need such things, because he intended to slay the heavens. Those who defy the heavens either succeed or die. There is no third path. Thus, the true martial progenitor merely watched the demon corpse with curiosity. At this moment, the bottomless shattered demon sea was being completely absorbed by Lin at a speed visible to the naked eye. This left everyone utterly astonished. Around Lin's body, endless demonic energy surged and roared. He dropped to one knee. Looking at Su Zimo, he said solemnly, "Master, Lin will obey your commands." His eyes were filled with devotion, like the gaze of one paying homage. "Why did you fall here?" Su Zimo asked. "In that great battle we ultimately lost," Lin sighed. "When the primordial demon cave was sealed and exiled, I was fortunate. I was hidden outside at the time and was not exiled. But back then, they launched a demon cleansing campaign. They sought to exterminate all ancient demons across the 9 heavens. I was ambushed and eventually besieged, so I chose this method of feigned death." Lin's expression carried both anger and resignation. The great cause of defying the heavens was not yet complete. "How could I fall? It seems many things happened back then," Su Zimo sighed. He waved his hand. The entrance to the God world appeared in the void. "Go in. Some old friends are still waiting to catch up with you." The old friends Su Zimo referred to were naturally Paimon and the other infernal archons. After subduing Lin, Su Zimo looked at the now empty shattered demon sea. Treasure Buddha Demon Court had also been dealt with. He believed that at this moment, countless eyes were focused on this place. Countless gazes were fixed on true martial sacred ground. Many forces had already begun investigating their origins. This was the first time true martial sacred ground had established its authority since arriving in the upper heavens. And this display of might could be considered a success. It had intimidated many people, and petty forces no longer dared to act rashly. Next, true martial sacred ground needed to lie low for a period of time. Moreover, the true martial progenitor and the others also had to begin preparing for the heaven-defying war. After all, defying the heavens was not just empty words. Nor was it something a few people could accomplish by charging in blindly. They had to combine timing, terrain, and people, and use the most secure method to challenge the heavens. Su Zimo returned to True Martial Mountain. The true martial progenitor said, "First, we need to find a place where the sect can be established. Choose a location to build the sect. When we were annihilating sects earlier, didn't we pass by an ancient forest?" Sandao said, "The spirit energy there is rich, and the climate is pleasant. In my view, with just some simple adjustments, it would be suitable for habitation." "I agree as well, but the forces in the upper heavens are complex. We should first understand the situation of the region we're currently in, the radiant progenitor added. Everyone knew that the near-infinite upper heavens were composed of 4 heavens. After some investigation, Su Zimo came to understand the situation. This region was called Grand Desolate Heaven. It lay in the northern part of the upper heavens and was a world inhabited by the primal god race. Simply put, this place was ruled by the primal god race. Do not be fooled by the former prominence of Vast Ocean Dao Domain or Treasure Buddha Demon Court. Despite their fame and power, they were nothing more than ants beneath the primal god race's palm. No matter how wildly they struggled, they could not escape the rule of the primal god race. In Grand Desolate Heaven, the primal god race held supreme power. The primal god race resided here, forming the divine court. Almost all powerful members of the primal god race held positions within it. As for the weaker members of the primal god race, they established forces within Grand Desolate Heaven to seek their own development. The forest chosen for the establishment of true martial sacred ground was called the Myriad Beasts Forest. This place was a paradise for demonic beasts. Long ago, it had already been occupied by them. It was very difficult for humans to enter. On this day, the Myriad Beasts Forest, which had been calm for countless years, was finally disturbed. A towering mountain peak descended from the void and came to rest within the forest. I, Jin Wu, from today onward, establish our sect here. We will begin recruiting disciples. All demonic beasts must make way and leave a path for my disciples to pass. As the true martial progenitor's words fell, there was no domineering blade intent, nor any arrogance. They were simply plain, ordinary words. I am establishing a sect here. Whether you agree or not, you must make way. As for the consequences, the true martial progenitor did not say them aloud. Sure enough, upon hearing this, the demonic beasts of the Myriad Beasts Forest were thoroughly enraged. Roars echoed without end. Chongqi howled in fury. Ice phoenixes spread their wings across the sky. Void dragons shuttled through space itself, lightning and thunder flashing. Ancient colossal beasts stomped forth, shaking the earth. Beastly might surged, and in an instant, heaven and earth darkened. This place was the paradise of demonic beasts. They had lived here for countless ages, and now humans dared to occupy it without even offering a greeting. It was easy to imagine how many demonic beasts had been provoked. Some of them even spoke. Their voices were like rolling thunder, shaking the heavens. Humans, this is not a place you should come. That's right. Get lost. Don't think you can act recklessly just because you have some ability. The Myriad Beasts Forest will forever belong to us demonic beasts. So many flies buzzing in my ear. The true martial progenitor said, rubbing his ear. He snapped his finger. With a thunderous boom, a world-destroying force exploded within the Myriad Beasts Forest. In less than a second, trillions of roaring demonic beasts screamed in agony. Ancestor, hold back a bit. If you sink this forest, how are we supposed to use it? Sandao said with a bitter smile. Yet these demonic beasts were stubborn. Such an attack not only failed to intimidate them, it enraged them even further, their roars growing louder. You must die. We, the beast race, do not submit. The beast race will never bow. Hearing this, the true martial progenitor shook his head slightly. He seemed a bit weary. At this moment, he extended his right hand. His movement was not fast, but in the eyes of others, that single hand sealed off tens of thousands of miles of surrounding space. No being could move. All were suppressed. Immediately afterward, the true martial progenitor brought his hand down. First, he slapped the howling Chongqi flying away with a single strike. Then, with another motion, he entwined the void dragon and ice phoenix together and tossed them into the void. As for the ancient colossal beast, a single finger pierced straight through its brow, and it collapsed heavily to the ground. In an instant, dust filled the air, and countless giant trees were crushed. When all the beasts of the Myriad Beasts Forest witnessed this scene, the once deafening roars fell silent. So the beast race never submits, unless it's beaten up? Su Zimo found it somewhat amusing. Our establishing a sect in the Myriad Beasts Forest will not affect your lives. Sandow said as he stepped forward. At this moment, he played the role of the peacemaker. Our true martial progenitor has set a rule. Our disciples will not harm the beast race. We won't invade each other. How about that? Hearing Sandow's words, some elders of true martial sacred ground were displeased. They asked in confusion, Sandow, why be polite with them? Anyone who disagrees, just cut them down. Are we really afraid of them? Sandow is leaving a way out. The true martial progenitor thought to himself, we will eventually go and defy the heavens. Leaving such a large true martial sacred ground here, Sandow doesn't feel at ease. That's right. Don't you think these demonic beasts are the perfect gatekeepers? Sandow said with a smile. The few above exchanged a few brief words. But for the demonic beasts below, it was pure torment. Submit or die. That was the question. If we don't interfere with each other, can you guarantee it? A demonic beast finally wavered and asked. After all, no one wanted to die. Death was always the last resort. We're very sincere. Otherwise, today we could simply slaughter all the demonic beasts in the Myriad Beasts forest. What then? Sandow said calmly, mixing kindness with threat. Hearing this, all the demonic beasts ultimately reached a consensus. We are willing to coexist peacefully. Dealing with smart people is always easier. Sandow smiled. At that moment, countless demonic beasts began retreating from the depths of the Myriad Beasts forest. They ceded this vast area to the true martial sacred ground. The true martial progenitor did not hesitate. He waved his hand. The entire true martial mountain shifted through space. It finally settled down and took root here. After true martial mountain descended, the true martial progenitor waved his hand again. The void was sealed. All heavenly secrets were concealed. At that moment, the major powers watching true martial sacred ground felt as if their vision suddenly went dark. No traces remained at all. So they've finally established themselves, someone murmured. For our grand desolate heaven, I wonder whether this is good or bad. Good or bad depends on fate. Besides, why should we be anxious? Plenty of others are more anxious than us. You mean the primal god race? The primal god race ruled grand desolate heaven. Would the arrival of true martial sacred ground bring conflict with them? Would it affect the primal god race's ruling order? Such questions were a delight for many to watch unfold. If true martial sacred ground and the primal god race fought, no one knew how many people would secretly cheer. Naturally, many continued to pay close attention to how things would develop. At this moment, within the divine court, the divine court was located in the skies of the upper heavens. This statement was accurate, yet not entirely. The divine court possessed an ancient divine mountain. This divine mountain could descend into the earth, dive into the sea, and rise into the heavens. One could say that as long as it was within the upper heavens, there was nowhere the divine mountain could not go. Even forbidden lands and perilous regions could be crossed by this mountain. Yet the divine mountain was usually elusive and untraceable. It was said that upon the divine mountain resided two ancient beings, heavenly eye and earthly ear. They sat atop the mountain, observing every movement within grand desolate heaven. No matter what happened in this world, or who it involved, nothing could escape the observation of heavenly eye and earthly ear. But at this moment, when the true martial progenitor concealed everything, no matter how heavenly I looked, he could not see what was happening inside the Myriad Beasts forest. Earthly ear listened intently, yet heard nothing. Everything seemed completely cut off. They rarely encountered such a situation. The divine court had already been highly wary of true martial sacred ground and had assigned these two to monitor them constantly. Now that things had reached this point, the two hurried into the depths of the divine mountain to report. Upon the divine mountain stood an enormous and magnificent hall. This hall was called High Heaven Hall. At this moment, within High Heaven Hall, the gods stood in rows, immortals raised their heads, and the primal god Overlord sat upon the high throne. The scene was solemn and dignified. At the side, divine envoys were reporting on the situation in grand desolate heaven. The primal god overlord was like an immortal emperor holding court. Each report was akin to a formal audience. Essentially, major events and notable individuals within Grand Desolate Heaven were all reported here. Their purpose was twofold. First, to maintain the primal god race's transcendent status. Second, to maintain the balance of Grand Desolate Heaven. Although the primal god overlord appeared lofty and exalted, in truth he was extremely busy, with endless and tedious affairs every day. At this moment, heavenly eye and earthly ear rushed in hurriedly. So flustered. "What do you think you're doing?" A Tao lord beside them scolded coldly. The two knew they had been disrespectful. They did not dare say much, only replying, "There has been a change regarding true martial sacred ground.